DJ Bonation, shaming of Jay. He's not a dopey dumb bitch. He gets laid. The court jester, the court DJ. It's time to dive into the case. To the case.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back. You're all going to be shocked to find out that Bob Opedic, Bobby Digital, forgot that he has Law and Crime until 2 o'clock. So it's right now, it's just me until we get back to the trial starting, which has anyone confirmed? Did she mean like a straight hour from 11:40 or I'm sorry, 12:40? So I have it up. They haven't gone live yet, but I will go live with them. And Joe Jackalone will be joining us as well. Sarge, make sure you subscribe to him if you're not already. Bob, thank you, Jacqueline. Bob is going to be very happy that I uploaded this to his page, so he'll be able to use this from now on.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back.
While we're waiting, I want to know if anyone else, when he's talked about a pimply kid with the phone, am I the only one? Let me share this. Am I the only one? Whoops. Let me share this way, and let me put this. Let me put this here. Am I the only one who thought when he said pimply kid with the phone? Am I the only one that thought of this kid? I'm making a short. You better believe I'm making a short where it's going to have this kid in it when he's talking about the pimply kid with the phone. My immediate thought was this kid. Am I the only one from The Simpsons with like the cracking voice when he's like, did you think some pimply kid was just going to take your phone? Maybe it's just me. Any hoozle. We are waiting for court to come back. And we'll go live. Once they do, Bobby Digital is on Court TV. We could probably write or Law and Crime right now. We could probably watch him if we want. But anyway, thanks for being here, folks. This morning, if you missed it, was, as my wonderful wife always says, this morning was banana sandwiches. Holy shizzle. The stuff that went down. And it's still going, folks. What a cross-examination. I don't know if since I've been streaming for now, I don't know. When did I start? March? What am I? About 14 months. I don't know if I've seen a witness get eviscerated like that. Although I feel like I've said that recently. Maybe it was in this trial. But holy shizzle. That, like, that man was being destroyed almost to the point where the judge is like, all right, we need a break. This is too much. This man needs to go change his diaper and come back and face the music. Holy crap, was that man. I mean, it's like we've been saying this whole time. First of all, front the information so it doesn't seem that bad. Second of all, just admit to minor things. Just admit to certain things. Just admit to them. You know that the first 48, you're a sergeant investigator. You know that the first 48 hours are the most important. We all know about the TV show. The jury knows about the TV show. You're telling me you're the sergeant of an investigative squad, and you don't know that the first 48 hours of an investigation are the most important? Come on, sir. Just admit shit like that. Admit that your dog barks sometimes when it hears things. Just admit that shit, man. The butt dial, it makes you look worse. Just fucking admit some stuff. By the way, how great was Josh Ritter? I hope folks are giving him a subscription on YouTube and Twitter. Ted Daniels says 145. Thank you, Dizzy. So any second now, and Joe will be joining us shortly, and Bob will be back at 2 o'clock. Man. And of course, Alan Jackson. What a job. What an attorney. One of the best attorneys that I've watched. I mean, I'm no expert like Bob and Josh, but just from all the attorneys, I'm starting to learn. We've watched all you folks that have been here since the beginning, who have watched these trials, we've seen some good attorneys, we've seen some crap attorneys, and this man is really good. And for the folks who have been here since Zach Latham, which this trial has a lot of parallels with Zach Latham, law enforcement being involved, some questionable investigation, but it reminded me of when Christine Long on cross had Karen, what's her name? Christine Latham. What was her name? Not Christine Durham, where she just had her dead to rights. She just had her dead to rights. For folks who watched the trial, does anyone remember that? Because that to me, Catherine Durham, thanks, babe, in the background. It just reminded me of that. But this is worse. This man there's a lot more stuff that clearly appears to me to be shady AF that has gone on. And like I said in the morning session, if you didn't believe before this witness that there were some shenanigans going on behind the scene, if you're on the jury, I bet you do now. Now, those shenanigans don't mean that potentially the state's theory is correct. That doesn't mean that. I'm still waiting for more evidence regarding that. But just don't try to I don't know, man. I don't know how people who even think that, for people that think that Karen is guilty, can't admit, like, can they admit at least that this is some shady ass stuff going on, and that like law enforcement maybe in the background of cases does some shady ass stuff to cover up some stuff. I mean, to me, maybe they just didn't want, like I talked about before, maybe they just didn't want their kids to be involved in the investigation. I mean, obviously the defense's theory is much more than that, but they were, maybe there's something that they're trying to hide. They're making calls, they're deleting phones. You're telling me that man, Sergeant, for how many years, doesn't know when he hands in his phone that shit is going to get deleted, and he does it the day before he's supposed to hand in his phone? Come on, sir. Come on, madam. I don't care who you are. That looks shady. AF. Come on. What are we doing here? That shit is shady. The day before? Come on. What are we doing here? What are we doing? Anyway, sorry for a little rant there. And a jury knows that. Come on, a jury knows the first 48 hours, just like the TV show. A jury knows you hand in your phone, stuff is going to get deleted the day before. You're telling me they don't all realize that? Any hoozle, thank you all for being here. I hope you hit that like. We had me and Bob talk about it right when we got off the stream. We're like, wow, we had almost like 2,200 people combined. Both of us are growing, and we appreciate all you guys supporting us and hitting the like, sharing the videos, commenting on the videos, letting people know that we got the best chat in the land with the best mods in the land, and we try to provide some commentary that you'll enjoy. I hear some noises. Let's go over here. Not you, Siri. Shut up. Thanks.
Thank you. Please be seated. Coda's back in a second.
Oh, Bob, I'm not raging about you, Bob.
So, Mr. Jackson, if I had realized that you only had a couple of questions left, we would not have taken the break when we did. So,
May I proceed?
please.
Thank you. Mr. Albert, I want to address a couple of quick things that we talked about a little bit earlier. The September 22nd, 2022 date, recall that date?
Yes.
That's the date that you indicate that you believe you got rid of your phone or turned your phone in for an upgrade.
Yes.
Did you watch the proceedings that on this case, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed, on September 22nd, 2022?
No.
You were not aware that that was the first date that I appeared on this case? It was nationally televised?
Objection.
Sustain.
Were you aware that hearing date of September 22nd, 2022 was a televised hearing?
Objection.
Sustain.
What did you know about the hearing date of September 22nd, 2022?
I didn't know anything about it.
Knew nothing about it?
No.
Okay. Let me ask a different question. This is going to dovetail into an earlier conversation you and I had concerning statement that you gave to in June of 2023 to the other hearing. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm fumbling the language a little bit, but you understand the hearing that I'm talking about.
Yes.
You had indicated a little bit earlier in my questioning that you did not recall saying something to the effect of, yeah, it's only possible that it was me who answered the phone. You remember saying that? That you didn't recall that?
Yes.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Albert, there's a highlighted portion of that transcript. If you just take a look at that, and when you're finished reviewing it, just look up at me and let me know.
Mr. Albert, were you in fact just being silly? Were you just being a silly goose, Mr. Albert? Just tell us the truth, Mr. Albert. Were you being a silly goose? Two wild and crazy guys. Two wild and silly guys.
Yes, I got.
May I approach, Your Honor? Yes. Thank you. Mr. Albert, did that refresh your recollection as to the colloquy that you had with someone questioning you about this issue in June of 2023?
Yes.
And in fact, you testified as follows, question, can you just but then you?
Objection, Your Honor, as far as the reading.
As far as what?
Reading from the transcript, he's asked him if his memory is refreshed.
All right, so go ahead and ask him a question. Don't read from the transcript.
Did you in fact say in answer to the question, if it's not your wife and it's not your dog, who else is it possible on earth to answer this phone? Answer, yeah, it's only possible that it's me. Did you say that?
Yes.
Just before the break, I was asking you about those, as you indicated, many phone calls that you traded between and among your family members and friends, including Brian Higgins. You recall that?
Yes.
Were those many calls an effort to get your stories straight about how you were going to, what statements you were going to give to law enforcement, and how are you going to testify if this case ever went to trial?
No, absolutely not.
Were those calls, or those many calls, an effort to coordinate narratives between you and your friends and your family?
No.
Were those many calls in any way discussing the fact of creating a story of mysterious butt dials?
Objection.
Sustained.
Have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Guys, real quick, I figured it out. I figured out what happened with the phone. It wasn't a butt dial. There it is. There's Chloe. Now we know. Anyway. Wait, what the hell just happened? What the fuck? Sorry about that. Oh, we already saw this? Sorry. I don't know what just happened there. Sorry about that, guys. Is there still no sound? Is there no sound now? I see the no sound. This isn't. Guys, I see. Hold on. I don't know why this is happening. Give me a second. I don't know why YouTube is or why this is happening. I'm going to refresh. Hold on.
Handle.
Is there sound
Again, how
now?
long have you known Ms. McCabe?
I've known Jen since she was probably 6 or 7 years old. She's like a sister to me.
Sorry about
Know
that.
nothing about it.
No.
Did you
Yeah.
say that?
Yes.
Sorry.
Just before the break, I was asking you about those, as you indicated, many phone calls that you traded between and among your family members and friends, including Brian Higgins. You recall that?
Yes.
Were those many calls an effort to get your stories straight about how you were going to, what statements you were going to give to law enforcement, and how were you going to testify if this case ever went to trial?
No, absolutely not.
Were those calls, or those many calls, an effort to coordinate narratives between you and your friends and your family?
No.
Were those many calls in any way discussing the fact of creating a story of mysterious butt dials?
Objection.
Sustained.
Ever?
Yes.
I butt dialed the internet. Sorry, guys. I butt dialed law and crime. I was being a silly guy.
Okay. Mr. Wiley.
And I butt dialed. I was just being a silly guy. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
You were asked some questions about the week prior to being at the waterfall. At some point, you were at the hillside, correct?
Yes.
You were there with friends and family, is that correct?
Yes.
You weren't specifically there with either Mr. O'Keefe or the defendant, correct?
No, I was not.
And same with respect to the waterfall on January 28th, you were there with friends and family, is that correct?
Yes.
You weren't specifically there with Mr. O'Keefe or the defendant, correct?
No, they came unrelated to anything I was doing.
And you were shown some video from the waterfall from January 28th, in which you were speaking at a sort of section of the table, correct?
Yes.
And was the defendant the only person in that section of the table?
No.
There were other people around her, behind her, is that correct?
Yes, looked like there were other people at the table as well as situated right behind where she was sitting.
And those other people around her, behind her, those are people that you knew far better on January 28th than the defendant?
Yes, those are my relatives and friends, and that's why I was at that location.
You were asking questions about going over to Ms. McCabe's house later on in the afternoon of the 29th, correct?
Yes.
Why did you go over there?
I went to Jen's house because she's my sister-in-law. She was going through an awful time that morning, as we all were. And I wanted to be there to comfort her if she needed anything. Because we're so close, I didn't want her to feel like this was too much for her to handle.
Again, how long have you known Ms. McCabe?
I've known Jen since she was probably 6 or 7 years old. She's like a sister to me.
Now, at your home on the January 28th and the January 29th, when people came back after the waterfall,
Jay.
did you at any point in time?
Bob, we may have lost sound for a little bit, so if you're going to fire me, now's the time.
I mean,
Basement area of your home?
sounds like
No.
some shit I'd do,
I
man.
think it's at any time going to the
I don't know how I
basement
did it.
Not that I know of.
area. Did you see anyone go into the basement area of your home during the time that you were there after coming home from the waterfall?
No.
Now, you were asked some questions about your dog, Chloe, in that she wasn't great with strangers. What exactly did you mean by that?
All I meant was that she wasn't overly affectionate with strangers. She's a heavy dog. Not everybody likes dogs. So if there's going to be people at the house that don't know the dog, they might not particularly want her around them.
Were you more concerned about the people in the house that didn't know Chloe, or were you more concerned about Chloe herself?
The people in the house, never has the dog, to my knowledge, been aggressive to anybody except for the time that there was a fight between two dogs.
Now, you were shown in Exhibit 66 that was sort of a drawing of your house. Do you recall that?
Drawing.
And had you ever seen
Roaring.
that prior to today?
No.
And do you recall specifically within the drawing or the artist's rendering of your house, there were certain lights on around the garage and the front door?
Did notice that, yes.
And do you recall whether or not those lights were on when you came home from the waterfall on January 29th?
I don't recall, but oftentimes those lights are off and sometimes the bulbs don't even work in them.
And when Ms. McCabe comes into your bedroom sometime after 6 a.m. on the 29th,
Yes.
that was following a day in which you woke up in New York City and went to a funeral, is that correct?
Yes, I went to a funeral that morning in New York.
And that was for a fallen police officer from the New York City Police Department?
Yes, a police officer in New York that had been murdered while on duty. And that was his funeral.
And did you know that police officer whose funeral you attended?
Objection.
The objection sustained. Next question.
Now, with reference to, you then drive all the way home from New York to Massachusetts, correct?
Yes.
And you went out to a couple of different places, had a couple drinks, correct?
Yes.
And then went back to your home and went to bed sometime around 2 a.m. or so?
Yes, after 2.
And so about how long had you been asleep from the time that you got off to the time that Ms. McCabe comes into your bedroom that morning?
Only a few hours, probably 3-4 hours, 3.5, 4 hours.
Now, in relation to waking up that morning, you testified that you did not go outside, correct?
Yes.
And why not?
Initially, when I woke up and I was told what was going on out front, I looked out my window and I saw some emergency vehicles. I did not see John at that time. I came downstairs with my wife and she asked, where was John? And Jen said that he was...
Sustained. Next question.
What was your understanding of where Mr. O'Keefe was when he came downstairs?
Objection.
Ask it differently, Mr. Lally.
In reference to when you came downstairs, what was your understanding of medically what was going on outside?
Objection.
The objection sustained.
Was there any reason for you to go outside of your house at that time?
No, there was not. At that time, there was no victim out in front of my house.
Yes.
So there was no first aid for me to give. There was nothing I could do.
You were asking questions about the sort of bulkhead in the back of your house, correct?
Yes.
Where is that bulkhead in relation to the bay windows of the kitchen that you were testifying about?
So the bulkhead door is directly under the bay windows in the kitchen. The bulkhead door opens up almost directly into the windows, obviously without hitting them, but it opens up into the front of the bay windows.
What you saw as far as that video that was shown to you, that's not what the bulkhead looked like. That's not what the door looked like at that time on January 28th to 29th, 2022.
No, those are not the doors we had.
And as far as the bulkhead was concerned, when that bulkhead was opened around that time, what, if any, kind of noise would that bulkhead make?
A loud creaking, old rusty metal sound when you opened it.
Is that something that if it was open and you were in the kitchen area, you could hear?
Yes.
Now, in reference to that bulkhead, what, if any, security or what, was it open? Was it locked? How was that left?
So the bulkhead door was shut and it was broken. So sometimes you could turn the metal thing to lock it, and sometimes it would be hard to do.
Good looking.
The wooden door that goes into the basement has a lock on the doorknob.
You were here. I was trying to say
that is a door that we keep locked because we don't use it.
Now, as far as from the bulkhead, you were shown in that video a gate that opens up to the front yard area of the house. Is that correct?
Yes.
What, if any, other gates are located on the fence in your backyard?
So we also have a gate on the rear part of the fence. And there's also a gate on the opposite side of the house.
And the gate in the rear area of the fence, where does that lead to?
So that leads to some woods, and then eventually you'll hit some train tracks.
With respect to your phone, that was something that you had upgraded prior to any notification you received from the district attorney's office or anything in relation to preserving your phone. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, with respect to that, as far as the information contained within the phone, there are certain types of information. Are you familiar with being sort of backed up by the cloud?
Yes.
Would that include calls?
It could.
Could that also include text?
Yes.
Could that include photos?
Yes.
Could that include contacts?
Yes.
And the information that you were shown as far as certain call logs or call records, as far as you know, was that generated after that September of 2022 date?
Yes.
Now, with respect to the preservation, that was in regard to a motion the council had filed for your physical phone, correct?
Yes.
Are you also aware of a judge's order denying that repeatedly as far as them gaining access to your physical phone?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Yes, it was denied on multiple occasions.
I'll strike the multiple occasions.
You were asked some questions about boxing, correct?
Yes.
And the boxing that you did, that was in relation to a group associated with the Boston Police Department, is that correct?
Yes.
And when was the last time that you were involved in any kind of actual boxing match?
close to 20 years ago.
Now, with respect to some of the training that you were talking about, with respect to the Boston Police Department, you were given some training as far as defensive tactics, is that correct?
Yes.
And is that something that is standard, that is sort of given and administered to every Boston police officer?
Yes. So within the academy, you go to the defensive tactics training.
And that includes John O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
Whoa.
Now, as far as your house, where you used to live 34 Fairview Road, what, if anything, did you observe or notice with reference to cell phone reception in that area of your life?
I know what you're laughing
So
at.
oftentimes,
Keep it to
using
yourself.
the phone within my house, it seemed like it was it's a slang term, the dead zone for the phone. The reception wasn't great.
And is that something that recurred over the time that you lived there?
Yes.
Now, with reference to the phone, and prior to the intimate moment that you shared with your wife sometime after 2 a.m., do you recall whether or not the phone screen was locked at that time? Were you checking that at that particular time?
I don't recall the exact timing, but I know it was opened sometimes and then it was closed, obviously, at some point, but I don't know the exact timing.
So the phone may not have been locked at the time that you began that situation with your wife.
It may not have been.
With reference to the call logs or phone records that you were shown, best of your memory.
I'm seeing some messages. We got some audio issues, Bob.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too. I'm hearing it fine on my end. Oh, there's Joe.
There's Joe. Where could Joe have been? Who knows? Let me try refreshing this and seeing if it fixes the audio issue here.
Yeah, so Joe, I sent you the link for the morning stream.
I've been sitting there since 1:40.
Joe has been here since 1:40, folks. I'm unfired. I'm rehired. Bob sent Joe the link for the morning stream, but he's here in the afternoon. Joe, thanks for being here. If you guys aren't subscribed to Jacqueline already, what are you doing with your lives? Mods,
For real.
please.
Joe's pushing 10K. Let's go.
Let's get him there. And let's see. Guys, tell me if the audio is better now.
You were asking questions about the sort of
Was it
bulkhead
us or was
in
it just
back of your house,
the long
right?
crime or
Yes.
the stream?
Where is that bulkhead in relation?
I think it was just a
to
stream.
Bay windows of the
Like-
kitchen that you were testifying about.
It's weird.
So the
For me,
bulkhead
it's-
door is directly under the bay windows in the kitchen. The bulkhead door opens up almost directly into the windows, obviously without hitting, but it opens up into the front of the bay windows.
What you saw as far as that video that was shown to you, that's not what the bulkhead looked like. That's not what the door looked like at that time on January 28th to 29th, 2022.
No, those are not the doors we had.
And as far as the bulkhead was concerned, when that bulkhead was opened around that time, what any kind of noise with the bulkhead?
A loud creaking, old rusty metal sound when you opened it.
I'll fast
Is that
forward.
something that if it was open and you were in the kitchen area, you could hear?
Yes.
Now, in reference to that bulkhead, what, if any,
How far ahead are we, folks? I don't even know. Try this.
administered to every Boston police officer?
And is the
Yes,
audio
within
better?
the academy.
Like, I wasn't getting any crackling. It sounded crystal clear to me.
Bob, you want to try sharing it? Maybe it's my thing. You want to try sharing it from your screen, maybe? I
Yeah,
don't...
let me see. Yes.
Sorry, guys. We'll fix this.
Okay. Let me go here.
Did the prosecution start prosecuting yet, or did I miss it?
No, Joe. They're
No.
still not prosecuting. They're waiting. They're waiting.
Yeah.
They're waiting. What have you been up to, Joe? How was Mother's Day yesterday? Did you treat your wife like the queen that she is?
Well, that's every day, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true, brother. We
Yeah.
know that. Okay,
Yeah.
let me see. Okay. Oh shit. Let me see. How far behind were we? A little bit. All right. So, because we got a new witness on the stand, the guy with a fantastic mustache. Is a little teaser. Okay. Let me see. I'm gonna pull it up. Unmute. Sure.
Defensive tactics, is that correct?
Yes.
And is that something that is standard, that is sort of given and administered to every Boston police officer?
Yes. So within the academy, you go to the defensive tactics training.
And that would include John O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
All right. So two things. One, is that better? And is this where we were at, or are we before, or because live they have a new witness on? So like Lally's close to being done here.
He was
So
done 2 weeks ago.
A lot better. So do we hear this? Do y'all know? Or do I need to go back a hair?
Fast forward, Sleuthie says.
All right. We'll try about right here. See.
Left on the stand. That was really about it.
So you and Mr. Lally talked about the fact that you've been on cross-examination for 2.5 hours.
Mike?
The conversation consisted of, you probably got another 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think he was going to lunch or doing something. So
So you didn't talk about the substance of your testimony.
no.
He didn't tell you what questions he was going to ask you on redirect.
Maybe mention one thing he may ask me, but that was
Like, what was that?
just he was going to ask about what happened at the house in the morning. That's some of the questions on redirect. That's all.
Meaning he was going to ask you the question about whether or not John came in the house?
No, not necessarily.
He was
Just
going to ask you about whether or not the guy sell sections in the house?
no.
What was he going to ask you?
He was going to ask about the morning of the incident, about coming downstairs and why I didn't go outside.
Did he tell you what he thought would be helpful for the Commonwealth?
Nope.
Did he tell you how he thought you should answer that question?
No.
He did ask you about a situation concerning the motion to preserve, correct?
No.
I'm sorry. He asked you on redirect about the motion.
Yes.
To preserve.
Yes.
And he mentioned that there was a motion that had been denied for the defense to get access to your physical phone, correct?
Yes.
You're aware that that motion was denied in October of 2022, correct?
Yes.
You had already gotten rid of your phone a month earlier, hadn't you?
Yes.
And the preservation order from the judge was still in place when you got rid of that phone, wasn't it?
No, I believe the phone was upgraded prior to the preservation order.
Oh, right. The day before.
Yes.
That's all I have.
All right, Mr. Albert, you are all set, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
Your next witness, Mr. Lally.
Yes, Your Honor, we'll call Brian Albert Jr. to the stand.
Okay.
Oh, Brian Albert Jr. Jay, are you on your super secret mic there? Is that what the crackling could be?
No,
It might be
I'll be
mine.
right back.
The court's permission to
papers that were left up there with the last witness, out there marked as anything. I just returned the counsel.
No, but I totally went off the screen. They said it's not me. So
Okay, let me try to go off screen. Okay.
do you guys still hear it?
Right up here, Mr. Butcher. May stand and face the court. You solemnly swear the honesty of the court and jury in the case now hearing the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Thank you.
Hey, whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor.
It's better. So is it Bob? Was it Bob that whole time?
Good afternoon.
Figures.
Could you please
Figures.
state your name and spell your last name?
My name is Brian Albert Jr., and it's Albert.
And where do you live, sir?
I live currently in Norwood, MA.
And how long have you lived in Norwood?
I believe since I think it's about a year, since last May.
And prior to moving to Norwood, where did you live before?
I lived in Canton,
And where specifically in Canada?
34 Fairview Road.
And how long was it, sir, that you lived at 34 Fairview?
I'm going to guess, but I'm going to say maybe about 10 years.
And how old are you now, sir?
I'm 25.
And with respect to both where you live in Norwood and where you live in Canton,
Mhm.
with anyone did you live both?
Well, when I lived in Canton, I lived at one point with my 4 siblings, but then some of them moved out. And then in Norwood now, it's basically just me and my parents, and 2 of my siblings are at school. So they come home in the summer and stuff.
And by your parents, your father's name is Brian Albert as well, is that correct?
Yes.
And your mother's name is Nicole?
Yes.
Now, you work, sir?
Yeah, I do. I work in IT.
And how long have you been doing that?
That job will be a year, maybe a year in August, I believe.
Sir, if I could turn your attention to the time frame of January 28th, 2022 into January 29th, 2022. Do you recall that specific time frame?
Yes, I do.
And the 28th and the 29th, do you know roughly what days of the week that was?
Maybe a Friday and a Saturday, I believe.
And with respect to 28th or the 29th, what, if any, significance to those dates?
Oh, Bob left. Hold on, folks. Hold on. Hold on, guys. We'll get this right. Bob just left me, stranded me here like an orphan.
Hang out, probably, I would say, and mostly in the dining room. The dining room and the kitchen were kind of like one big open space. So we would be like in the kitchen or the dining room. And sometimes I think we may have like walked into like the family room area, sat down for a little bit, but mostly it was just the dining room and the kitchen.
And the family room area, is that visible from the kitchen and dining room area?
There's a wall, but there is a doorway, door frame. So you can't see all of the family room, but you can see a good amount of it, yeah.
And as far as each of your respective friends that you were testifying come over to your house that night, do you have any idea how they?
Now the crackling's back. I'm sorry, guys.
How they got there?
I hear nothing wrong. I don't understand what's happening.
With regard to earlier at your house, when you indicated that your mother went out to the waterfall, she went out with Julie Albert, correct? And that's your aunt?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I asked you about 3 different questions.
No, it's all right.
As far as Colin is concerned, Julie is Colin's mother.
Yes.
Do you recall about what time it was that Colin came by?
I don't recall exactly. I would say maybe closer, maybe 10:45, 11 p.m.
And as far as the other people at the house, the women that you had over, did Colin know any of them that you knew of?
Yeah, Colin knew some of them just from being in the same town. Colin's older brother is just me or older than me. So Colin's brother is in some of the grade of some of the girls, in the grade of some of the girls that were there. So that's how he knew them.
And just to be clear, Colin's older brother is also named Christopher Albert.
Yes.
And now when Colin came over to the house, as far as the things that you were describing before, as far as hanging out, is that essentially what continued after Colin's arrival?
Yeah, he was just another addition. We just were continuing to do the same stuff, hanging out.
Now, with respect to within the home, you've mentioned sort of the kitchen, the dining area, and the family room. Were there any other areas of the house that anybody went to during the course of the evening?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, there's a bathroom, but it's just off the kitchen. So I assume it's the bathroom. But that's really it. We didn't go anywhere else than that first floor area.
So mainly in the first floor, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you see anybody at any time go down to the basement?
No.
Did you see anybody at any time go upstairs?
Not to my knowledge, no.
You mentioned that at some points, your parents and some people that were at the waterfall came to your house. Is that right?
Yes. So first a group of my friends had left my house. And I think that was probably around, they were only there for a few minutes while Colin was there. So I would say probably around 11:10, a few select people left the house to go home. So at that point, it was just me, Colin, Julie Nagel, and Sarah Levinson at the house until my parents arrived.
And so Courtney, Catherine, and Emily would have left at some point shortly after Colin arrived.
Yes.
And when your parents came home, if you recall, what was sort of the order of, do you recall about what time that was?
I would say that would be right around midnight, I would say, maybe 12:05, 12:10-ish in that area.
And just turning back to Colin for a second, do you recall, you know how Colin came to be at your house?
Like how he was dropped, like if he was dropped off?
Yeah, yes. Did you know whether or not he drove there, was dropped off there, similar to the other people that you were talking
Well, I know he didn't drive there, but I would assume he got dropped off. He didn't say how he got there, though.
Right, so we'll strike, you don't know how we got there.
Okay, yeah.
And as far as the order of people that arrived back at your home, who were the first people to arrive back at your home from the waterfall?
The first people to arrive were my mom, my dad, my sister Caitlin, and my dad's friend Brian Higgins.
And prior to that evening of January 28th, had you met Mr. Higgins before?
I don't recall ever meeting him. I could have met him in passing, but I don't ever formally remember meeting him, no.
Do you recall ever seeing him at your house at Fairview Road prior to that?
I don't think he'd ever been there that I have saw, no.
And as far as Colin was concerned, when your parents and your sister and Mr. Higgins arrived, when, in relation to that, when did Colin leave the house?
Colin was actually getting up and leaving after we were coming into the house.
And similar to, do you know how Colin left your house or how he, whether or not he drove or was picked up or anything?
Yeah, he was sitting at the table and I was actually sitting right next to him and he stood up and said, "I'm leaving, Allie's picking me up." And so I knew who Allie was because she's my cousin.
And what is Allie's last name?
McCabe.
And she's your cousin as well, is that correct?
Yes.
She Colin Albert's cousin?
She's not Colin's cousin. No, she's my cousin on my mom's side.
And so Colin would be your cousin on your father's side?
Yes.
And following your father, your mother, your sister, and Mr. Higgins' arrival at the home, where did they sort of congregate within the home?
In the same area that we were, in the dining room, in the kitchen area. My mom got home and I know she went right to cleaning because she likes to clean. So she was in the kitchen picking up. And yeah, we were all just in that one area.
And
It looks like a young Mike Ditka.
the home, if anyone else showed up at your home that particular evening.
And then I would say maybe 10 minutes later, my auntie JJ, well, her name is Auntie Jen, but I call her JJ, and Uncle Matt arrived at the house.
Your Auntie JJ and your Uncle Matt, what is their last name?
McCabe.
And was that, their arrival, was that before or after Colin had left?
Colin had already left at that point, yes.
And so the alley that Colin was picked up by what, if any, relationship does she have to your Auntie JJ and your Uncle?
That's their daughter.
Now, throughout the course of the evening, well, let me ask you this, as far as when was it that the last person didn't live at your house on Fairview Road? When was it that the last person?
The last, I wouldn't know I couldn't tell you the time. Well, the last people to leave were Auntie JJ, Uncle Matt, Sarah, and Julie. I don't know exactly what time that would be. I can't even guess. I don't know.
And you mentioned your sister, Caitlin, is that?
Oh yes. I'm sorry. I was just thinking of her as my sister, like sibling. So she didn't live in the house. So she was the last person to leave.
And prior to her leaving is when your Auntie JJ, Uncle Matt. And
Yes. Yeah.
so with respect to after your Aunt JJ and your Uncle Matt McCabe arrived at the house, who, if anyone else, came by the house that you were there?
No one.
Well, let me ask it this way. As far as anybody else following them actually physically come into the house?
No one else came into the house after them, no.
And at some point, were you made aware of someone out in front of you?
I saw someone outside of the house, yes, a car.
And what was it that sort of drew your attention to the front area of the house?
Yeah, so at some point, my friend Julie stood up and said, "Oh, my brother's outside." Her brother was there to pick her up. And someone made a comment saying, "Oh, no."
Not what they said, what happened as a result.
Okay. She went outside to talk to her brother. And so I looked out the window at that point, and she was outside talking to her brother. So his truck was there, and I saw another car there as well.
And with respect to your friend Julie Nagel, her brother, what is his name?
His name's Ryan Nagel.
And if you recall the time that Julie gets up and goes outside to talk to her brother, where were you within the house?
I was still sitting at the dining room table.
Staring at my
With
picture.
regard to that area of the dining room table, how was it that you were able to see out in front of the house?
There's two windows there. So I just turned around and looked through the blinds.
And when you looked through the blinds, what is it that you saw out in front of your house at that time?
Yeah, so I saw a truck, which was Julie Nagel's brother's truck, I believe. And that was a little ways, almost like in front of the driveway of the house. And then a little ways in front of it, there was another car that I hadn't recognized before. It was a dark SUV-ish, and that's all I knew about it and could see about it.
Now, similar to yourself, who, if anyone else from sort of the group of people, either in the kitchen or in the house, could you observe near a window or a door that was looking on that?
I believe my Uncle Matt McCabe noticed the car outside as well.
And with respect to the dark SUV that you didn't recognize and what you thought was Julie Nagel's brother Ryan's truck, was there anything in between the truck and the dark SUV that you saw outside?
Not to my knowledge, I didn't see anything, no.
And as far as the weather, when you looked outside, what, if anything, did you know about the weather?
It was definitely snowing. I wouldn't know how many inches, but I would say an inch or two of snow at that point.
With regard to being out in front of your house, those two vehicles, do you recall which direction they were facing?
Yeah, they were both facing, going up Fairview towards Cedar Crest. So whatever this is, I don't know.
Well, let me ask you probably in a better way. As far as what was facing towards your house, was that the driver's side or the passenger side?
Oh, that would have been the passenger side.
And that's with respect to both vehicles, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, at any point in time during the time that these vehicles were out in front of your house, do you recall hearing anything or any sort of noises coming from the front of your house that drew your attention?
No, I didn't hear anything, no.
And as far as looking out the windows and seeing these vehicles in front of your house, how many times did you look out?
I believe I looked at that one time, and then I think I looked out one more time after that.
And as far as your friend Julie, if you know about how long was she out in front of your house at that time?
I would say not more than 5 minutes, more likely about 3 or 4 minutes she was outside.
And when did you see her outside in relation to the truck as well?
Yeah, I saw her at the passenger door of the truck.
Now, that vehicle that you observed that you didn't recognize, the darker black SUV, was that vehicle in one place or more than one place during the times that you looked out the window and saw it?
Yeah, so the first time I looked, I would say it was closer towards the mailbox, maybe a little bit in front of the mailbox. And then the second time, the last time I looked out the window, it had moved further down, closer to, I'll say, the flagpole. So closer that way, it went down that way towards the flagpole.
So closer to there's an area in the front of your yard where there's flagpoles, is that right?
Yes.
Now, as far as when it moved, as far as the weather and the snow was concerned, could you see anything in relation to the roadway and behind the SUV as it once it had moved from that initial position to the following position by the flagpole?
Yeah, I had noticed just some tracks in the snow, indicating that the car had moved up.
Now, your friend Julie, did she take that ride home with her brother Ryan at that time?
No, she came back in the house.
And as far as your friends, Julie and Sarah, that were still at the house when people from the waterfall came home, do you know how they happened to go home on that particular evening?
Yes, my aunt, JJ McCabe and Matt McCabe drove them home.
And do you have any idea about what time that was?
No, I'm not really. I'd be guessing. I would say maybe one something, maybe.
Now, with respect to your sister, Caitlin, who you indicated was the last person to leave the home that evening, is that correct?
Yes.
And were you awake or downstairs?
I don't know if I was downstairs when she actually left, but I was down there for a minute when she was the last one present at the house with my mom.
And do you know how she was leaving the house that night or how she was getting home?
Yeah, I believe her boyfriend was picking her up.
What's her boyfriend's name?
Tristan Morris.
Sir, if I could turn your attention to the following morning. At some point you go to bed. Do you know about what time it was that you went to bed?
I would say, I don't know, late 1, early 2 o'clock in the morning.
And your bedroom is in the second floor of the house, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And with respect to, how many bedrooms are up on the top floor? Or what?
4, I believe.
And with respect to your bedroom, where was that in relation to the layout of the house?
My bedroom would have been the middle back of the house. So I had 2 windows, but they were in the backyard of the house. So the middle with the back side.
So the 2 windows that from your bedroom face the backyard area?
Yes.
Now, at any point in time after you went up to your room, same question as before, were there any noises or anything that drew your attention outside of the home at any point prior to your waking up?
No, I didn't hear anything.
And if you know about what time was it that you woke up later on that morning of the 29th?
I can't recall the exact time. I'd say maybe, I know previous testimony I may have said earlier, but I don't believe it was that early. I would say 7:30, 8 a.m.
What was it that woke you up that morning?
My dad had knocked on my door.
And without anything specifically that you had talked about, following that conversation, where did you go?
I just threw on some clothes and I went downstairs into the main first floor of the house.
He's turning
You
red.
came downstairs into the main first floor area of the house. Who, if anyone, did you see?
Yeah, so when I went down there, it was my mom, my dad, my auntie Jen, and my uncle Matt.
And about how long were you down in that area of the home?
I would say the first time I went down there, I would say I was down there for maybe 15 minutes or so.
You said the first time you went down, were there subsequent times after that?
Well, yes, I went back up into my room after I was down there the first time, and then I came back downstairs. And at that point, there was no one there besides me and my parents.
And that second or subsequent time that you came downstairs that morning, to know about how long it was after the first time?
I would say maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe.
Now, with respect to your birthday, as far as what, if any, sort of ritual or thing you have with regard to your Aunt Julie?
Oh yes. So my aunt likes to get me donuts. It started, I don't even know, probably when I was like in middle school. Because I used to really like donuts. So every birthday she would give me six donuts in a box and a card. And that was just our ritual. She would bring it over every day, every time it was my birthday.
And did you get those, as far as the donuts and the card and everything, at some point on that particular morning?
Yes, I believe that when I went downstairs the first time, the donuts and the card were there already. So I had known that she had come by and dropped them off for me.
Did you physically actually see your Aunt Julie on that particular morning?
No, I didn't see her then.
May I approach?
Yes.
Turn it into a donut caper now.
Am I the only one that calls it a tradition? Like my family has traditions. I don't call them rituals. I don't know.
I mean,
Speaking
nobody
of
knows
donuts,
more
what are you
about
eating, Bob?
donut capers than Joe and Cobb.
Exactly.
I mean, come on.
How old is this guy?
73. He's aged. He's aged well.
4 photographs. I just asked you to look at those.
25?
Okay. Okay.
25.
Got to be a Boston cream. Sir, do these donuts look familiar to you? Yeah, those are the donuts. I ate them all.
I'm trying to figure out where this line of questioning is going.
So tell me about the
And
donuts.
just generally speaking, do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes, this is my old residence.
Old residence at 34 Fairview Road, is that correct?
Yes.
And generally speaking, what's depicted in those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what the house looked like around that time?
Yes.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Call multiple seat to introduce and admit as the next board exhibit.
Any objection, Ms. Little?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, Joe, did you see the last witness?
Oh, Brian Albert?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it? Joe, can you tell me all about your being a cop for all those years and never being trained into figuring out if criminals are trying to hide their tracks?
I'm trying to figure out that and how you don't know how to use evidence tape. So
Don't know if you, Joe, did you know if you give your phone in and you get a new phone, the old phone stuff is destroyed? Did you know that, Joe, or is that news?
Joe, did you always carry a sleeve of red Solo cups in your cruiser? God forbid. Some extra shop and save bags.
This whole thing with the cops, boy, really left a bad taste in my mouth. I mean,
May I return to the witness, Your Honor?
I was
Maybe
wondering if you
not
had
as-
any PTSD from like bad times on the stand and watching these guys get eviscerated on there.
You know what? They deserve it. You know what? They deserve it. It's as simple
Bingo.
as that. You know?
Was there always a rivalry between Boston
Your Honor,
and
with the court's permission, I would
NYPD
ask,
cops? Like, were you guys
that
like,
those
you guys
photographs be
suck?
published in succession.
We're the big city. You guys,
Nah.
no, that didn't
That
exist.
stuff definitely doesn't exist.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could first have,
Good to
I
know.
believe it's 2592. So
Allie
what's up
wants
on the
more
screen, is that
pictures
what
of
you
the
have
house.
before you? I
Oh,
believe it's
sure.
exhibit 71, probably.
Yes,
There you
that's the same.
And again, just for the record, you recognize what's up on the screen now?
Yes, I do.
Now, before I get into the photograph, there is one other question that I need to ask, as far as with respect to the sort of tenor and demeanor of that evening.
Mhm.
How would you describe sort of from when your friends were there to the time that the folks came back from the waterfall? How was sort of the mood within that?
Cheerful, fun. Everyone was having a great time.
Any fights, any arguing, any tension, anything else that you noted with regard to that?
No, not at all.
I do, Meg, but not for crime scenes.
And I believe, sir, there should be
Joe,
a
how
record
many
on
crime scenes have you used your leaf blower on, friend?
Yeah.
Please
tell us.
about it with
Oh,
respect to.
thank God.
Okay.
Now, with
I'm waiting
regard
for the other
to
shoe to
the
drop.
front area of your house,
Mhm.
at 34 Fairview Road when you live there, there's basically 2 doors on the front of the house, correct?
Yes.
And if you could just use the matte laser pointer and direct the jury's attention to Where in the photograph do you observe each of those two?
Okay. So this would be the first door right here, and this
Oh
is
my
the second
God.
door.
It's like a
And
cat
the
gonna be
first door
jumping
sort
up
of
on this
further
thing.
away from the driveway, is that sort of the front door area of the home?
Yes, that's
Right
the
around
front door.
here.
And the other door, where does that lead?
The side door leads just right into the family room.
And as far as around this time, January, or on this evening,
Low blower.
where were people sort of coming in and going out of their house?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you specifically. I think some people use both doors.
And
4
what
p.m.
we're calling sort of the
Eastern.
front door area, that's
They stop every day at 4
one
p.m.
closer to the garage leads into the living room, is that correct?
Yes.
And so the front door further away from the garage, where does that lead?
That's like a foyer area, and then if you take a right, it leads you to the dining room, kitchen, and then you keep going into the family room.
Now, if you don't take a right and go into the kitchen and the dining room, and then sort of into the family room, and just sort of go straight, where does that lead?
Well, you can't really go straight. If you walk in a little ways to the left, there's a set of stairs that go upstairs, and you can go straight a little bit, and then to your left again, there's stairs that go downstairs into the basement.
Now, in addition to you, your mother, your father, around the time of January 2022, did you have a pet as well?
Yeah, we had a dog, Chloe.
Well, the dog's name is Chloe.
Yes.
But how long at that point had you had Chloe?
We had her for a few years. I don't know exactly how many years, but a few years.
Now, on that night, specifically of January 28th leading into the 29th, did you do anything as far as letting Chloe out to the bathroom or something like that?
Sorry. So the dog was actually upstairs in my parents' bedroom. She likes to sleep up there and stay up there. So she was upstairs when my friends were downstairs. And at one point, after my dad came home, it was asked if someone let the dog out. And I said, sorry, I forgot. Because it was my responsibility, because I was the only one home. So he went upstairs to get the dog, got the dog, brought her downstairs, let her outside.
And so when someone would let Chloe outside around this time, so can you describe that process as far as would it be a leash or just let her out, or how would that?
Yeah, so we had a fenced-in backyard, so we just kind of let her through the back door and open the door, and she was able to run around out back.
Whoever let her out, would they typically sort of stay at the back door while she was out?
Yeah, we stay around the kitchen area, yeah.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have the next photo up on the screen, 2593.
Yeah, well, I was likely going to ask him, what's the color of the house? Is it maroon or is it like a reddish brown?
72 is that?
Is that a chartreuse?
Yes.
Chartreuse.
Now, if you could, with regard
Burnt
to
sienna.
This photograph, I was mentioning something about a flagpole in the area of your front yard, is that correct?
Yeah.
Using that laser pointer, you could direct the jury's attention to where that is.
Right here.
Now, with respect to this photograph that's up on the screen right now,
Brian Jr. is not real
His
handy
name
with
was
that
Brian.
laser pointer, is he?
where was, if you could direct the jury's attention to where it was about.
He's a wreck.
He would have been more this way, so the photo doesn't show you all, but he would have been more in front of the driveway over here.
And that first time that you looked at the window, where was the darkness?
I believe that was right around the mailbox area, right about right here.
And then again, if you could direct the jury's attention to the second time that you looked out and this would be moved, where had it moved?
It was more down this way on the side of the road.
Now, if you could, as far as the windows that you're talking about in the kitchen area that you were looking out of, you see those in this photograph as well?
Yes, I do.
If you could direct the jury's attention to where you see
Those are about right, those two right there.
those. Thanks.
Yep.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have the last photograph from that set. And then what's up on the screen?
Big size, this guy.
Yes.
Big sign guy.
Again, this is another photograph of the front area of your home, taken around the time of January 2020.
For some reason, this guy
Yes.
reminds me of the Step Brothers movie.
Did we just become best
As
friends?
far as the flagpole in this particular area, that's off sort of the left center of the screen, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, in between the time that you saw that dark SUV that you didn't really recognize, in the area of the mailbox and then further down, you see it at any other points moving along?
No, I just caught it as it had already moved. By the time I looked out the window, I noticed that it had moved up.
It's a good question.
Facing the same direction, is that correct?
Yes.
Same
Looks
path,
like when the
side
snow
door,
is starting to
facing the
melt.
house.
Yeah.
And as far as the dark SUV was concerned, at
Yes,
any
he
point in
did.
time, did you look out
Yes,
and
he
not
did.
see the dark SUV?
No, I didn't look out the window again.
So for the rest of the evening, you didn't look out the window?
No.
Now, in reference to the time that expired, between the time that you saw it in the area of the mailbox and the time that you saw it over by the flagpole, do you have any idea how long period of time that was?
I would say probably within a couple minutes. It wasn't a long period of time that I looked out the window.
And as far as you know, your friend Julie, who had gone out to the pickup truck to talk to her brother Ryan, was she still outside around the time that you looked out the second time?
She could have been. I'm not sure if she was at that point, but she could have been.
And this gentleman can take that. I have just one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Now, young Ditka, do you remember earlier in your career when you played with Dallas? Joe.
Yeah.
So you've been keeping an eye on this bad boy, right?
Yes, I have.
Where do you think we're at here, man? Like, has the state even come close? You know,
No, it's 2-0 defense for the 2 weeks. Right now, this is shaping up to be a 3-0 going into it. I mean, this is going not guilty or hung jury as far as I'm concerned. Prosecution hasn't proved this case. They overcharged at the begin with.
I agree.
Come on.
I agree.
And I hate when they overcharge and then they drop, like one of those, they shoot for the stars and they get the moon. Great kind of thing. We didn't do that in New York, man. You charged what it was. The cops tend to maybe overcharge, but the district attorney, as you know, goes in there and says, you know what? No, we're not going to do that, right? Because they want to get a conviction.
Of course.
I think they really bungled this thing.
I mean, where are they going to show the intent, man? Is their intent going to be some angry voicemails from Karen Reed at 4 a.m. when her boyfriend's gone missing? Like she thinks the guy's out, philandering.
Well,
where are you?
Well, we know she's drunk too, so that's even worse for the.
Oh my God! Like Jay and I have had the conversations. Back in my drinking days, if I was out with the buddies and Allie's hitting me up, "Hey, how's it going?" and I don't answer her for 3 hours, by the third hour, she's like, "I'm gonna fucking kill you." What are you doing? Are you kidding me? What are you to me, those are nothing burgers. And they're certainly not going to intent, and they have to prove the element of intent to get that second-degree homicide charge. And I'm not seeing anything even close to that.
This should never have been a homicide.
I know I agree.
Especially with the amount of alcohol involved and all the evidence that shows that they've been drinking. I mean, and drinking heavily.
Right.
It's come on.
Right. And it's and I'm curious from the perspective of former law enforcement, but also from the jurors, how do they feel about the fact that they're bringing this case as a murder case, and they're really only able to show, if they can, and I'm assuming they'll be able to show something when we get into the forensic stuff with respect to the car backing into them, they're only able to show maybe that he hit him. Does that affect them in terms of reaching a verdict altogether? You know what I mean? It's at least a guilty verdict. I think it does. I don't know.
I also think that it might be too late for anything. Even if they drop a bombshell down the road, I think it still might be too late. I mean, this is gone now. Now like I said, we're getting into the third week, and I have yet to see anything from the prosecution besides putting up witnesses that have been only good for the defense, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, man, same. I'm just, I'm trying to be objective with this thing. Really, truly, I am. And I always take the pulse on Twitter to kind of see, and I've just seen certain people just hey, man, wow, the Jackson's really struggling here. Brian Albert's got him on the ropes. And I'm like, am I not seeing something? Am I missing something about this?
Well, one thing that I do when I watch these trials, I particularly hone in on what the cops do or didn't do, right? So, I mean, that's part of the thing. I try not to get involved with what the lawyers are doing because that's not really my bag. But let me tell you something: the cops have done a terrible job on this. I went on a 5-minute Twitter rant. I don't know if you saw it the other day, but I had just about had it with this kind of situation, and it made me say that this is not a conspiracy. This is incompetence, right? And of course, everyone's going nuts about that because they say, "Oh, you need two people." You can't keep on changing your definition of what you think happened just because the information is not. People are making the same mistake with this case that we tell cops and detectives never to make, and that is come up with a theory and then find the evidence that proves your theory correct. And that's exactly what's happening in the public. And you're not going to get people off either side. I tell people I'm not pro Karen Reed and I'm not anti Karen Reed. I'm like looking at the investigation and saying you're not proving your case. It's as simple as that. It's about criminal justice at this point.
Exactly. And I mean, that's what it is. I mean, if you're looking at this objectively and you strip away whatever feelings you might have had based on all the pretrial stuff we saw in this case, and you're looking at it completely from an objective standpoint, I just can't see how you're seeing that they're proving a case right now. Like
I don't either.
Like, not even the manslaughter, but the manslaughter is going to come to, like that again. I keep seeing things. Well, what about the microscopic pieces of tail light in his clothing and the hair on the bumper? I'm like, well, all right, I want to see it. I want to see it.
Yeah. What if my aunt had balls? Should be my uncle, right? I mean, it's just it comes to a point where even when you say that this is going to end in a not guilty or a hung jury for the free Karen Reed people, that's still not enough. It has to be, that plus some. And I can't understand that logic anyway. I mean, when you agree with people, they still want to disagree with you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the counter argument to that, like if this ends up on they didn't meet the burden verdict and they get an NG, all those folks are still going to be like, Karen Reed's a murderer. Karen Reed's a murderer. Karen, you know what I mean? So
that's why you don't argue with people who've said that. You don't argue. It's just like, okay, whatever you say. I give up. I try to throw in something and they'll come up with the what if scenario. And I just
okay. There's no point. You're never changing anybody's mind once it's made.
No, you're not.
All right, Meg P, two times. Always give her 2 fantastic 5 apiece Defense Diary podcast memberships gifted out. Thank you so much, Meg. You're amazing. And I saw a $2 holla in there too. Not your edits. Appreciate you so much. Thank you.
And before I restart this, I saw Ghost of Buddy the Elf says, I like this guy. We do too. If you don't know Joe, you're missing out. Sarge, please, mods, share his YouTube. He's on his way to 10K. Let's get him there. If you're not subscribed to Joe, check him out now, please. We'll share the link. You will love his channel, promise.
There's no question. Joe's longtime NYPD detective, guy knows his shit. He's the best. Like if you got to follow him. And I am going right now to see
when you woke up. Your father was at your door?
Yes.
Balls.
As far as from what you could see of his person, what if any injuries or anything did you observe on his person at that time?
On my father?
Yes.
Nothing.
Now, at that time, January 28th and January 29th, 2022, did you know anybody by the name John O'Keefe?
I knew of the name, but I didn't know him personally, no.
And when you say you knew of the name or you knew of him, how did you know?
I knew he was friendly with my auntie JJ, Jan McCabe, and his niece was friendly with my cousin Jen's daughter.
And as far as your cousins, as far as Miss McCabe's daughters, what if any sort of relationship did you have with them, specific to them, beyond sort of your other cousins?
Oh yeah. So for a while, I think when I was in college or maybe the end of high school, I would help out because there was 4 girls, so they always had like multiple sports going on and stuff. So I would drive them to and from practices or be there after school if JJ had to be somewhere. So I spent a good amount of time with them and basically babysitting, but more just driving around and stuff like that.
Through them, is that how you came to know Mr. O'Keefe's niece, Kaylee?
Yes.
And you gave her rides to places as well?
Yeah, occasionally when she would come back to the house after school, I'd drive her to CCD or whatever.
And had you ever met, to your recollection, John O'Keefe or anybody by the name of Karen Reed prior to January 28th?
John O'Keefe, no. I mean, he could have came into the house once when I was there at my aunt JJ's house. And we could have said hi, but I don't remember formally meeting him. And I never met Karen Reed either.
And on that evening, again, January 28th, or the early morning of January 29th, beyond the people that you've already talked about, and specifically John O'Keefe or Karen Reed, did either of them at any point in time come inside your house while you were there that evening?
No, never.
Nothing further.
Yeah, Joe's quizzes are awesome. So Joe had an awesome exclusionary rule quiz the other day. I was asking Allie, I couldn't remember if it was MAP. I was like, oh my God, I knew it wasn't the other two, because those were clearly Miranda. We had one, and I think the other one was the Terry Frisk case. So
Yeah.
Joe's quizzes are great.
I always throw in cases that people know and they see it like, oh, I know Miranda versus Arizona. That must be it. I never heard of the other ones.
Yeah.
But,
Y'all, Joe's just got great content all around. His lives, he'll pop in for like little rants. He'll give updates on big cases. Joe's knee deep into our disgusting, trollish ogre friend out there in New York.
God,
so Huerman, he's just knee deep into that. Just trust us when we tell you. Go over there and sub, because Joe did like just about what are we at? Like just 10,500 or 9,560, Joe. About right there.
I think it might be a little more. Yeah, I mean, but still, think about it. I started this in August with you guys. I didn't even.
It's phenomenal.
Struggled to get to 1,000.
I know.
We're closing in on 9,600 now.
Phenomenal.
Awesome.
Phenomenal.
Awesome.
Well deserved, my friend.
Be the best speller, but I'll try.
All right, here we go.
All right. I think that's good. The first one is correct. You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Ms. Little. Thank you, Anna. Mr. Albert, the first time you ever spoke with anyone from the Massachusetts State Police, the Canton Police Department, or the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office was on July 6, 2023, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
That's a full 18 months after Mr. O'Keefe's death, correct?
Yes.
Who was present for that?
I spoke with 2 troopers, I believe, and my lawyer.
Trooper Proctor was there?
Yes.
And this interview actually took place at your family's defense attorney's office, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
The objections.
This interview took place at your attorney's office, correct?
Yes.
Your sister Caitlin Albert was also present, correct?
She was there for some time, but she wasn't when I was interviewing. She wasn't in the room with me. No.
And that was also the first time they had spoken with your sister as well about these events, correct?
Objection.
And to be clear, the Massachusetts State Police only interviewed you after you were called to testify before a grand jury.
Objection.
Separate proceeding, correct?
The objections.
I want to
That was a
direct your
hard swallow.
attention to your testimony regarding your cousin, Colin Albert. You testified today that Colin Albert called you to come to the house, correct?
I believe so. He did. Yeah.
Do you recall some prior testimony in which you said that you all had exchanged Snapchats about what you were doing that night in the house?
No, I don't believe I said that. I said for him to know that I was at the house, he could have seen a Snapchat that I had sent, but he didn't ask me on Snapchat if he can come over. I said more of that he had could have seen a Snapchat saying that we were at my house. That's how he knew, because I didn't know how he knew that we were there.
You and your cousins frequently communicate on Snapchat, correct?
Occasionally here and there.
You actually have a cousin group chat on Snapchat, don't you?
Yeah, we do. An Albert cousin group chat.
Who else is on that Snapchat?
There's all my cousins, a lot of us, a good amount of my cousins.
Would that include you,
Yep.
Colin Albert,
Yep.
Allie McCabe?
No, she's not an Albert.
Do you have a group chat in which Allie McCabe is a member?
I believe we have a cousins on my mom's side group chat, yes. But she wouldn't be in that group chat with Colin, no.
Understood. And do you still have any of the messages you exchanged with your cousin on January 28th?
I don't know, can you rephrase the question?
Do you have any of those Snapchat messages or other messages that you exchanged with your cousin Colin Albert on January 28th?
No, I'm not even sure if there was any messages. Not to my knowledge, I don't know.
That sounds like a setup question. Right, Bob? I mean,
It
it'd be
does.
like, oh, yeah, I think that sounds like a setup question.
Yep.
Your Honor, can I approach?
Hey, listen, my tie's feeling a little tight here.
It's like,
Hold on. I'm going to
here you
loosen this up.
go.
Mr.
I just
Albert,
want
you
y'all to
testified
know
that
I
Colin
just
arrived
dropped
at
a
around
huge glop of
10:45.
marinara onto my lap.
Today? I said that, yes? Yes.
Who else was at the house when the clock struck sort of midnight as it became your birthday?
Oh my God.
When it hit my birthday, it was just Colin, Julie, Nagel, and Sarah Levinson.
Was there any sort of celebration for your birthday when the clock struck midnight?
No.
What were you guys doing?
We were just sitting there. Probably happy birthdays were exchanged, but it was nothing crazy. I'm not a big birthday person like that.
Oh, really?
And where in the house were you guys at that point?
Auntie,
In the dining room area.
But he gets donuts every year from his aunt.
And he's up at midnight. Not a big, but I wait till the exact moment the day
This
turns
guy's
over.
like look like he's 40. No, I mean, I'm not trying to make fun of him. He looks like he's 40 years old, and it's like this birthday stuff is making me nuts.
The 40-year-old weirgin.
You testified that your parents, Brian Higgins, arrived shortly after midnight with your sister, correct?
Yeah, I believe I said around 12:05, 12:10 in that area.
Describe what happened when they came into the house that night.
They all just walked in the door. And at that point, my cousin Colin was standing up to leave. They passed each other, said hi, and that was it.
Mr. Albert, you never actually observed Colin leave in a vehicle from 34 Fairview, correct?
No, I didn't see with my eyes, no.
In fact, you said you only looked out the window 2 times that night, correct?
Yes, that's true.
I did see it with my ears, though.
Approximately what time did your dad go upstairs to get Chloe to take her out?
Well, that would have been like as soon as he got home. So around like a little after 12.
So would that have been before or after Colin sort of walked towards the door?
Colin had already already left at that point.
Where did your dad go?
He went upstairs into his bedroom where Chloe was there, brought her downstairs and went to the back door and let her out.
And you were asked by Mr. Lally if your father kind of stands by the door and waits for Chloe before he lets her in.
Yeah.
But you testified that he was just generally in the kitchen area, correct?
Yeah, the kitchen is by the back door.
But he's not standing by the door waiting for her. She's an off-leash dog. She can go out, do her business, and you can open the door sometime later, correct?
Objection.
Can you answer that? Is that correct?
Could you say it again, please?
Your father wasn't standing by the door staring at Chloe the entire time that she was outside, correct?
No, I would not the whole time, no.
You testified earlier that Julie Nagel went outside to speak with her brother to indicate that she no longer needed the ride. Do you recall that testimony?
I'm not sure if I said that exactly, but yeah.
Can you describe sort of what you saw the first time you looked out the window?
I just saw a little in front of the driveway a little bit. I saw a truck. I saw my friend Julie at the passenger door. I suppose talking to the people in the truck. And a little ways up, I saw another dark SUV that I wasn't aware of.
And so you'd agree that there was nothing obstructing the view between the truck and the dark SUV, correct?
Well, not from my vantage point, no.
And the second time you looked out the window, the only difference you saw was that Ms. Reed's vehicle had pulled up, correct?
Well, I didn't know it was Miss Reed's vehicle, but the car that was there had moved up, yes.
And the truck was no longer there, correct?
The second time I looked out the window? That I'm not sure of.
Would it refresh your recollection to take a look at your testimony
Sure.
from July 6, 2020, or sorry, May 18, 2023.
Are we trying to get down the pattern of this dog's bathrooms habits? Between
Well, his dad did say that he just stood there and watched him, so I think they're trying to get a little.
So show Mr.
now I know
Lang.
what they're doing, but
Oh,
like how many dogs would stay out in that snow anyway?
Okay.
good point. How many dogs won't be barking if there was a bunch of
You can look
cars out
up
in the
when
front?
your
My dog
recollection is
would.
fresh.
My dog loves snow, but he's
Okay,
half
yep.
husky. It's his
Does that
DNA.
refresh your recollection as to what you testified to
Sure. Yes.
on May 18, 2023?
Yes.
Isn't it true that you said that the second time you looked out, you saw that there was a black SUV that had pulled forward,
Yes.
but the truck was no longer there?
Sure. It seems like I said that then. Yes.
You also testified earlier that you saw tire tracks in the snow, correct?
Yep.
Where were those tracks?
Yep.
Just along the side towards the driveway along this way, going up towards the flagpole.
And you viewed those tracks kind of leading up towards the flagpole, correct?
Yes.
So you'd agree that the visibility and lighting in front of the house was good enough that you were able to see tire tracks in the snow, correct?
Sure.
But you did not see a 220-pound man lying in the snow in your front yard.
Objection.
Is that something that you saw, sir?
I crushed
No, I
the game
didn't see that.
early, but then faded as the day progressed.
Who was in the house the second
I
time
was in
that you looked out
timeout
the
for
window?
60 minutes.
I
It
mean,
would have been my mom, my dad, Brian
Sorry,
Higgins, my sister, Julie, Sarah, Uncle Matt.
Mr. Albert, you testified on May 18, 2023
Mhm.
in another grand jury,
Mhm.
and you said, quote, "I'm not sure if Brian Higgins was still there. I know he left at some point." You recall that testimony?
I mean, I know he left my house at some point. I just don't know exactly when it was.
You were asked specifically at the time that you looked out the window, who was there? And you said, "I'm not sure if Brian Higgins was there."
Yeah.
Isn't that correct?
Okay, if I said that, yes, because I was not sure. I'm still not sure that if he was there or not.
So you're not sure whether Brian Higgins was there when you looked out the window, correct?
No, I'm not
Sounds
sure.
like it.
You have no independent recollection as you sit here today where Mr. Higgins was when you looked out the window, correct?
No.
You also didn't recall Mr. Higgins ever saying goodbye to you or your group, correct?
I believe that's true. Yeah.
In fact, you actually testified before another grand jury on May 18th, 2023, that at some point Mr. Higgins just wasn't there anymore. I must have gone to the bathroom or something. I came back and I said, "Where did Higgins go?" And they said he left, correct?
Sure. Yes.
You also testified before that grand jury.
Objection, Your Honor.
So, yeah, I'm going to see you, Tybert. If you could bring that, please.
Sidebar. Oh, I can fast forward.
Sidebar.
I think
Sidebar.
sidebar. Yeah.
I don't know where they're headed with this now.
It's hard to know, Joe.
I mean, when you had disappeared last time, Jay and I were saying, like, about the dog, right? They want to get this dog's thing down because they want to put this time frame together. But I don't know. I don't know if that's what we're gonna do this year. But
I mean, it's hard to know. I mean, Lally at this point is spent an inordinate amount of time kind of rehashing. I would qualify him as the rehasher. That's my nickname for him. He likes to rehash things over and over and over again. I mean, we just all need to be thankful that young Brian here, young 40-year-old Brian, wasn't at the Waterfall Bar, because otherwise we would be watching the video again. There's no question about it.
God.
By the way, I didn't mean to pause it on this smirk, but look at that smirk. There we go.
Leave? You mean like go upstairs, go to bed, or?
Leave your view.
He would have left after Brian Higgins had gone.
Mr. Albert, isn't it true that you weren't quite so sure about that when you testified on May 18th, 2023?
I don't know. You would have to show me.
Do you have a specific recollection of your father leaving after Mr. Higgins was gone?
Yep, I'm pretty sure he went upstairs after Brian Higgins left.
What is that woman huffing?
The voice recorder, the voice stenographer.
Yeah, the lady that she's
Mr.
always
Albert,
huffing.
I'd like to show you. May I approach your end?
She's the. I call this lady right here. This lady right in the with the purple thing. Yeah,
The
she's
purple,
like
yeah.
a voice record stenographer or whatever they call it. Like she's talking she's making the record.
Right here. Okay. All right.
I've never seen that.
Yeah, people got really. I had questions about it. People were like, "Woo, what do you mean?" I'm like, I don't get it. Apparently, she has some sort of shorthand that she says into her little elephant trunk that she's huffing out of. I don't know how it works. Everyone was all mad at me when I talked about it, but yes, she is the court reporter.
Oh, sorry, I don't want to get everyone mad at you.
No, it's
again.
okay. They could yell at me again, but they're like, it's a shorthand. I'm like, I don't get it. What do you mean? Is she saying prosecutor says this, defense attorney says this? There's Sarah. She's about to yell at me. Court reporter is going to yell at me. Aspiring court. I still don't get it, Sarah. It doesn't make sense
Mr.
to me.
Albert, isn't it true that you told the grand
No
jury,
summer
I'm
classes
pretty
for me."
sure Mr. Higgins left first before my dad went upstairs because he wouldn't have left if his friend was still there?
Yes, I just said that here as well.
I mean, you don't have any specific recollection as you sit here today where your father was or where Mr. Higgins was when you looked out the window that night,
No,
correct?
no, that's not true. I know that my father was in the room with us. I'm saying I don't know. I'm saying I don't know when Brian Higgins left the house. And when Brian Higgins left the house, then my father went upstairs into his bedroom.
But what you actually said was, quote, I'm pretty sure Mr. Higgins left first before my dad went upstairs because he wouldn't have left if his friend was still there, correct?
I see what you're saying. Yes, but I still say that my dad wouldn't have went upstairs until Brian Higgins left the house.
Right, and that's based on an assumption, correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Because you weren't interviewed about this case until 18 months later, correct?
Yeah.
You did not personally observe your father go upstairs, correct?
No, I did. I watched him go up the stairs. I was standing I was in the kitchen. You can see the stairs right there.
Your testimony is you can see individuals walk upstairs in your house?
Depending on,
Kitchen?
yes, the dining room, from the dining room I meant.
There's actually a wall that kind of blocks the dining room to the stairs, correct?
Not if you're sitting at the two chairs with your back to the windows. If I was sitting in the long chair right here, the stairs would be right here. I could easily see through the doorway.
But as you sit here today, you don't know what time that happened, correct?
No, I don't know the time. No.
Yeah, no one anticipates having to
Mr. Albert, I'd
testify
like
in a
to direct your
homicide
attention to the
investigation.
morning of January.
No.
Sure.
Can you describe sort of how you woke up that morning?
It's usually
My
not on
dad
the
just
radar.
knocked on my door, and I woke up and opened the door.
You didn't hear any dog barking?
No,
You didn't see any emergency vehicles?
no,
Didn't hear any ambulances?
no,
Didn't hear any screaming outside?
no.
What did you do once you woke up?
I went downstairs.
Did you ever look out the window?
I don't recall if I did or not.
Would it refresh your recollection to take a look at your grand jury testimony? from
Sure,
May 18th,
sure.
2023?
Thank you.
Is it really?
Before he poured the Fruit Loops and and the 2% milk.
Made
yeah.
myself a nice glass
Why
of
did you look
chocolate
out the
quick.
window that morning?
Well, I say here
Got
that
settled in for my
this
Saturday
would give me anxiety
cartoons.
to look out the window.
Is there a reason that you didn't want to look outside?
I'm just an anxious person, and I got overwhelmed. I think most people would be overwhelmed in that situation.
Did you say that this was kind of a new thing for you, for cops and police to be at the house?
Yeah, that's never happened before. I've never had cops at or near my house.
and it made you overwhelmed, correct?
Yeah, I get overwhelmed easy, so.
Mr. Albert, how many times did you discuss this case with members of your family before you spoke to the Massachusetts State Police on May 18th, 2023?
I don't have an answer for that. I don't know how many times.
Hundreds?
We talk about it pretty decent. I mean, considering, yeah.
What members of your family have you discussed this case with?
My parents, my sister, occasionally my aunt, JJ, and Uncle Matt.
Would you say it's been hundreds of conversations?
Well, I guess you can, I mean, you'd have to split it up and quantify what conversations were about the actual case and what conversations have been the harassment we faced since then.
And all of these discussions took place with you and members of your family prior to your interview with the Massachusetts State Police, correct?
And no, we've talked since then.
Continued to speak with them about this case
Not,
since your interview.
I don't know what you mean by this case. This case meaning the actual case at hand, or just the case about the harassment we faced?
I'm talking about what happened on January 28th and January 29th.
But there's really nothing to talk about those specifics, no, because we have nothing to say about that. We weren't part of it.
Mr. Albert, you looked out the window multiple times on January 29th, correct?
Twice, I think I said.
You never heard any sort of commotion outside.
No,
You never heard screaming, yelling, or the screech of brakes in the front yard.
no,
You never saw a 220-pound man in dark clothes in the white snow on your lawn,
no,
but you did see those tire tracks.
I did.
No further questions.
Okay, Mr. Lally?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Yeah, that wasn't very
No
good.
redirect. You all set?
All right,
Mr. Albert,
All
you're
right.
all set. sir.
Thank you.
I mean, I felt for that kid. I'm guessing the jury did. I don't know, maybe not.
What? Felt for him?
Yeah, I just felt like he was like overwhelmed. He said
Yes,
it.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth call Miss Caitlin Albert to the stand.
Oh boy.
Oh, Nelly.
All right.
Oh.
Time to pour some more water for this one.
Yeah, I think he came off like a, I thought he
Came
was
off believable.
I thought he was credible. You
Yeah,
know?
came off believable.
I think so.
I mean, I don't like her line of questioning. She seems to get a little aggravated too.
Yeah. She doesn't have the finesse. that
The
Yannetti
polish.
Jackson
Yeah,
had.
definitely
Yeah.
not.
Step right up. Remain standing and face the clerk.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the honesty of the court and jury in the case now here and to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may take the stand.
Damn, these people are harsh. He's a grown man and he gets get his own life. Jeez. I felt bad for him. Not everyone has to, obviously.
I don't know if I felt bad for him, but I
Thank you, Your Honor.
found him to be credible.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Could you
What do I
please
know?
state your name
What
and
do I
spell
know?
your last name?
Sure. Caitlin Albert, CAITLINALBERT.
Somebody got a spray
And,
tan
where do you
before
live now?
court.
I live in Easton,
And how long have you lived
about 3 years.
there? With anyone do you live there?
I live with Tristan Morris, my boyfriend.
And you and Ms. Morris, about how long have the two of you been together?
Almost 8 years.
Now, prior to living in Easton, where was it that you lived before that?
I lived in Canton,
And specifically, where in Canton did you live?
34 Fairview Road.
And how long was it that you lived at 34 Fairview?
Geez, I lived there from about 2011 to 2021.
And that was a family home, is that right?
Yes.
And who did you live at 34 Fairview Road with?
My mom, my dad, and my 4 siblings.
And your mom's name is Nicole, is that right?
Yes.
And your dad or your father's name is Brian Albert?
Just an
Yes.
observation. Just an
And
observation.
how many siblings did you have, I'm sorry?
I have 4.
Are you the oldest?
I am.
And do you work for?
I do.
What do you do for?
I work for the Massachusetts Attorney General's office in the Medicaid Fraud Division.
Just real quick, Bob, doesn't this mean that they had to deal with the evidentiary issue of, remember when the beginning of the week, Katie McLaughlin, that's how they start, or was that last week? They're like, hey, before we get into Caitlin Albert, we got to go over that we have all these pictures. And then Bev was like, well, let's wait before her. Have we ever had a hearing that I haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it either. I'm guessing it's going to happen right before cross, which I don't know that we're going to make it to today anyway.
All right.
You know?
I guess.
And how long have you been doing that?
That's weird that they haven't.
Almost 3 years, I think. In September, it'll be 3 years.
Now, ma'am, if I could, excuse me, turn your attention to January 28th, 2022 to January 29th, 2022. Do you recall that time frame?
I do.
And do you recall what days of the week they were?
I actually am not sure that I recall the exact days of the week. Maybe Friday or Saturday.
Fair to say around the weekend time?
Yeah, weekend, definitely.
And as far as your family is concerned, the 29th, what if any significance is that day?
That would be my brother's birthday.
And which of your brothers is it whose birthday that was?
Brian Albert Jr.
And is beyond Brian Albert Jr., just for sake of my own lack of confusion, is there some other name that you would call him as far as differentiating him between your brothers?
Little Brian, sometimes, even though he's not so little.
And so during the course of that week, sort of leading up to the weekend, what, if any, discussion did you have with your mother or anybody else in your family in regards to little Brian?
So leading up to that weekend, I was aware that my brother might have like a friend or two over the house for his birthday. And then I had spoken with my mom and my aunt, Julie Albert, about maybe going to a local Canton bar, grabbing some food and some drinks, and just kind of seeing where the night takes us, and then maybe ultimately going back and seeing my brother for just to say happy birthday, kind of end the night that way.
As the week went along, what, if anything, sort of affected or changed plans in reference to that?
Nothing that I can really think of. Nothing really changed. I mean, that was sort of, I don't remember exactly how the plan came about, that we were going to, go get food and that my brother was going to have friends over. But I believe that was always sort of our plan.
And so specifically on the 28th, at some point you came to Canton, correct?
Yes.
And do you recall how you came to Canton and where was it that you went first?
So I can't say for sure. From what I remember, I believe that my boyfriend Tristan and I went straight from Easton to the waterfall and actually got there before my mom and my aunt Julie, from what I can remember. And then my mom and Julie ended up meeting us there. And that's when we sort of started just kind of like hanging out, ordering food, some drinks. And we were there for a little bit, just the four of us.
And do you recall about what time it was that you got to the waterfall?
Unfortunately, I can't remember an exact time, but it would have been around like dinner time. So if I had to guess, maybe like 6.
And as far as drinking was concerned with that night, you were at a bar and you weren't driving, correct?
Oh, yeah, no, I was not driving.
And do you recall specifically what kind of drinks you had or what you had to drink that night?
I believe that night I was drinking White Claw, I think.
And your boyfriend, Mr. Morris, as far as what, if anything, was going on with him that night, as far as how long was he at the bar?
Yeah, so we were aware that it was likely going to snow that night. So my boyfriend Tristan had gotten offered to do some like plowing or shoveling. So he knew that he was going to have to probably be up for the majority of the night into the morning doing some shoveling. So he didn't stick around at the waterfall for too long. I think he had some food, maybe like 1 or 2 drinks, and then he actually ended up going home.
And you stayed at the waterfall after he went home?
I stayed there, yeah, with my mom and my Aunt Julie.
And if you recall, as far as that evening at the waterfall, what, if anything, was going on as far as live entertainment?
I want to say that there might have been a band. I just don't want to say for sure, but I think I do recall a band coming in and setting up, and yeah, I think that there might have been one.
Now, as far as the evening progressed and went on, who, if anyone else, came into the waterfall and sort of joined your group?
Sure. So I can't say for sure like times of people arriving or order of people arriving, but I know at one point my uncle Chris Albert, he ended up joining us. He owns a pizza shop across the street. So when he was done working, he came and joined us. And then my aunt Jen McCabe and her husband Matt McCabe joined us. And then at some point, my father, Brian Albert, and his friend, Brian Higgins, also joined us. So at one point in time, I'm not sure the order of which, everybody came in or the time that they came in, but at some point we were all kind of there hanging out.
Now, and your father and Mr. Higgins, do you know where they had come from or where they were coming from?
Yes, I believe they were coming from New York from a funeral. And I remember I had asked my mom, like, is Dad going to stop by? And she was like, I don't know. He's tired. He's coming back from New York. And I was like, oh, I want to see him. So I think I convinced him to come. And then Brian Higgins just kind of tagged along from what I can remember.
Now, as far as Mr. Higgins was concerned, is that someone that you were familiar with prior to this evening on the 28th?
I knew of him and I had met him a couple times, but nothing more than that.
And as far as you're aware, the house that you, for lack of a better term, grew up in or spent some formative years in, had Mr. Higgins ever been over to that house at 34 Fairview when you were there?
Not that I know of.
Now, at some point later in the evening, who, if anyone else, came and sort of came up to your group or joined you while you were at the wall?
So from what I can remember, I remember sitting at like a high top table and it was me and my mom sitting next to each other and we were facing like the front door of the waterfall. And I recall a man and a woman walking in, and at first I didn't know who either of them were, but I noticed that the man started talking to like some of my aunts and uncles that I was with, and he seemed friendly with the people that were in our group. So I had said to my mom, like, oh, who is that? And she said, oh, that's John O'Keefe. And I had known of him because I knew his story about his niece and his nephew and his family. So I had known of him, but had never met him before. And so then I just assumed that the woman that was with him was his significant other, girlfriend, wife. I didn't know. So then, I didn't really speak to either of them. I think at one point, John came up to me and my mom and asked, like, do you guys need anything? Do you need a drink? And we said no, and that was pretty much it.
And so when you say you knew of John O'Keefe and sort of the story as you related, do you recall how it was that you came to know anything about Mr. O'Keefe? Or who was it through that you came to know about Mr. O'Keefe?
Well, in general, it was kind of like a known thing. The tragedy of what happened in the O'Keefe family. And so I had just kind of heard that story. And then on top of that, John O'Keefe's niece is either the same age or around the same age as some of my younger cousins. So I knew that she was friendly with them. I knew that my Aunt Jen McCabe would like help out here and there, going to sports, going to different events, whatever. I know that my Aunt Jen was friendly with John O'Keefe. And I knew that my Aunt Julie and Uncle Chris were somewhat friends with him as well.
And just to be clear, when you're talking about some of your younger cousins,
Mm-hmm.
the younger cousins you're speaking of, who are their parents?
So the younger cousins that I'm referring to would be the McCabe girls, and their parents are Jen McCabe and Matt McCabe.
And they were present at the waterfall that evening as well?
Jen and Matt were, yes.
Now, with reference to Mr. O'Keefe and and his significant other that you described. Had you ever met them prior to that evening?
I had not, not to my knowledge. I wouldn't be surprised if there was maybe like a sporting event or something where we, met each other in passing, but I had never formally met John or the woman that he was with.
And so on that evening on January 28th, you had never met nor were you aware of anybody by the name of Karen?
No, I was not.
And if you know about what time was it that they came into the waterfall and came over?
I can't say for sure. I'm not sure of time.
But fair to say, the other people that you testified about, as far as your uncles, your aunts, and things like that, were they all there at the time that Mr. O'Keefe and this group came in?
I believe so. I believe that everyone who was there in the group that I was with was present when John O'Keefe and Karen Reed arrived.
And about what time was it that things started to wind down as far as the waterfall was concerned?
Again, I'm the worst with times, but I would say it was around like 12-ish that we kind of said, let's kind of head out and head home. I would say 12-ish, approximately.
Now, during the course of the time that you were at the waterfall, either before or after Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed arrived, how would you describe sort of the mood or the demeanor of the group that you were with?
I mean, I didn't notice any issues or any negative things happening. All the conversation seemed positive, lighthearted. Everyone was just kind of having a good time, getting along. I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary, really.
So no issues as far as fighting or tension between your group, is that correct?
Correct.
And as far as you saw with regards to Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed, no issues as far as fighting or tension that you observed between the two of them?
Not that I observed, no.
And when you, around 12-ish or so, when you started to leave, who was it that, how did you come to leave and who did you leave with?
So I left with my mom and my dad. And again, I'm not sure the order of when like everybody else left. But I went with my mom and my dad back to 34 Fairview Road.
And if you recall, who drove home from the waterfall to 34 Fairview?
My dad.
And about how long a drive is that from the waterfall to Fairview Road?
I would say like 5 or 6 minutes, give or take.
And when you arrived to the house at 34 Fairview, do you recall where your father parked in relation to the house?
From what I can remember, he parked in the driveway. The driveway.
And if you know about how many other cars were in the driveway and when he parked?
I'm not sure. I know there was at least like 1 or 2, but I can't say for sure. I just don't really remember how many were in the driveway at the time. I had like younger siblings in college at the time who would sometimes take some of the cars, so I just don't remember for sure.
And if you know, essentially, there within the driveway, there's a garage at the end of the driveway. Is that correct?
Yes.
And there's a door on the left, door on the right. Is that right?
Yes.
And do you recall whether or not your father pulled in the driveway on the left side or the right side in relation to those doors?
I don't remember.
And when you came into the house, do you remember how it was that you came from the vehicle to the house?
Yes. From what I remember, I went in the front door. So I would have gotten out and walked on the brick path over to the front door area, walked up the steps, and then walked through the door that enters into like a foyer area.
And just to be clear, sort of when you walk into that front door with the foyer area, what if anything's right in front?
So when I first walked in, I actually had seen my cousin Colin. He was standing in the foyer area. And I remember I said to him like, "Oh, hi, what are you doing?"
Next question. Not what you said.
Taking you back to sort of when you're exiting the waterfall and when you're exiting your parents' vehicle and walking into the house, what, if anything, did you observe as far as the weather at that point?
I remember at that point, snow was definitely coming down. And I could tell that it was like progressively getting worse.
And so you walk into the home in the front foyer area, that's where you run into your cousin Colin?
Yes.
how is Colin related to you as far as, how is he your cousin?
So Colin is Julie Albert and Chris Albert's son. So he's my first cousin.
And when you walk in, you sort of bump into him, where was it that he was?
He told me that he was headed.
Where was he going?
To my knowledge, he was going home.
Next question.
Too late. It already came out.
From the time that you walked in and bumped into Colin sort of in the foyer of the home, how long was it that he was in the home while you were?
I would say
So how long was he in the home when you were there?
minutes.
And from your group, this includes yourself, your mother, your father, is that correct?
Sorry, what was that?
From your group, when you enter the home, that includes you, your mother, and your father.
Yes.
And who, if anyone else from the waterfall, arrived at your home around the same time as yourself, your mother, and your father?
I believe that Brian Higgins was the next to arrive. I think he very shortly after came inside, after myself, my mom and dad.
And so when Mr. Higgins comes into the house at 34 Fairview, are you already in the house?
I was already inside, yes.
And so do you have any idea what Mr. Higgins was driving that evening or where he parked it?
I do not.
And then once you come into the house, when you come into the house, where is it within the home that you go?
So I walked in through the foyer, and then I took a right turn, which leads into like the dining room area. And that's where my brother Brian and two of his friends were just sitting around the dining room table. So I said happy birthday to him and was just kind of hanging out in there for a little bit.
And the friends that you observed in that sort of kitchen dining area, the friends of your brother Brian, little brother, what were their names?
Sarah Levinson and Julie Nagel.
And were those people that you were familiar with prior to this evening in January 28th?
Yes.
Familiar with them as their friends of your little brother?
Yes, exactly.
And with regard to the house, after yourself, your mother, and your father arrived, and then Mr. Higgins after that, who, if anyone else from the waterfall, came to the house?
My aunt Jen and my uncle Matt McCabe.
And when your aunt Jen and your uncle Matt McCabe arrived, where was Colin?
Colin had left by then.
Objection.
I'm going to allow it.
And when Mr. and Mrs. or your uncle and your aunt McCabe come in, where is it that they go with it?
I believe they did a similar thing. They either entered through the dining room or through the kitchen area, but the dining room and the kitchen are like open floor, kind of all the same room. So we were just all kind of hanging out in that area.
And if you know about how long a period of time were you at your parents' house on Fairview Road that is?
I would say hour 45, latest 2 hours, but around like an hour and a half, an hour 45. Yeah, I can't say for sure. It's an estimate.
And for the balance of the time that you were there, were you in that same sort of kitchen dining room area?
Yes.
And what is it that you were doing as far as you and the group doing in that area of the house?
We were just kind of hanging out. I remember that my mom had grabbed like a small speaker and put some music on. We had a couple drinks and everyone was just kind of like having a good time, hanging out. We said happy birthday to Brian, and that was kind of it.
And Albert, at any point in time when you were let me ask you this first. As far as the sort of demeanor or mood within the house, similar to how I asked you at the waterfall, did any of that change once you returned back to your parents' house at Fairview Road?
No.
So everyone getting along, no arguments, no tension, anything you observed?
Correct, yeah.
Now, beyond the people that you just described, did anyone else come into your house, into your parents' house that evening while you were there?
No.
And specifically, Mr. O'Keefe and or his significant other, Ms. Reed, at any point in time while you were there, did they come into the house?
No, neither of them ever came into the home.
Now, with regard to the people that you were describing before, at any point in time, did the people in the kitchen dining room area, any of them leave that area of the house?
I think when my mom, my dad, and I first got there, I believe my dad went upstairs to grab the dog to let her out. So he did that, and then I think there was another period of time where my dad might have been showing, or maybe my mom or my dad were showing Brian Higgins like family photos of one of my brothers who's in the Marines. So and that would have been in like the family room area, which still is like there's an open doorway, so it's not like the door was shut or anything. But other than that, we all kind of stayed within that dining room kitchen vicinity.
Now, with reference to the dog, that was a family dog, is that right?
Yes.
And your family had the dog when you still lived on Fairview Road with your parents?
Yes.
And what was the dog's name?
Chloe.
And with respect to letting the dog out, can you describe to the jury sort of what that process entailed? Was it on a leash, or how would the dog be let out?
Sure. So we had like a fenced in backyard, and we had a back door. So we would just kind of open the back door, let her out. She would kind of do her thing, and then she would come back in when she was done.
And your father took care of that when you got home from the waterfall that evening?
Yes.
The family room that you were talking about, where your father and or your mother and Mr. Higgins were, as far as the photographs, where is that in relation to the dining room kitchen area, and specifically, can you see into that area from the dining room kitchen?
Into the family room? Yes. So there's just sort of like it's like a doorway, but there's no door there. It's pretty open. And if you're standing in the dining room or the kitchen, you can see into the family room for the most part.
Now, you at that point were not living at the address on Fairview Road, is that right?
Correct.
And as far as the people that were at the house who did not live at the Fairview home on that night, who was the last person to leave?
I was the last person to leave.
And prior to your departure from the house, sometime hour 45 or so after you got there, can you describe the order in which the other people that you just described were there? What order did those in?
I don't remember the order in which everybody left, but I do remember that Sarah Levinson, Julie Nagel, my aunt Jen, and my uncle Matt, they all left in one car, and then Brian Higgins left. But I just don't remember the order in which it was. Probably within like a couple minutes of each other, but I just don't remember exactly who left first. And then I left pretty shortly after everyone else as well.
If you asked my sister that question, she would have said, "Who left first?"
During the time
Joe.
that you were hanging out in that,
He always leaves first.
Irish
Always.
goodbye, Joe.
at any point in time, was your attention
Always.
drawn to the outside of the house? Hear anything, see anything outside of the house?
I did not.
And with respect to the front
Where's
area
Joe?
of the house, at any point in time,
Where'd Joe go?
was there any
What?
discussion that you recall about anything going on there?
I don't recall a discussion going on about anything happening out front, except for at one point,
No, let me hear her answer first. Except for what, at one point?
At one point, I remember that Julie Nagel's brother was supposed to pick her up. So I knew that there was some communication where she told him, "Never mind, you don't need to pick me up. You can go home. I'm going to go home with Jen and Matt."
Now, with respect to your aunt,
Definitely got her eyebrows done, her lashes, or both.
what, if anything, do you recall her doing with? Do you recall her having a cell phone that night?
I do.
And what, if anything, do you recall her doing with respect to that cell phone?
I remember at one point we were standing in the kitchen, and I had noticed she was on the phone. And I remember she said something to the effect of like, "Oh."
No, not what she said.
Okay.
So next questions.
At some point, did you see her talking on the phone?
I did.
And at some point, did you see her appear to be texting on the phone?
I'm not sure about texting. I definitely saw her speaking with somebody on the phone, though.
And at some point, where did she put her phone in relation to where you guys were in the kitchen and dining?
I'm not sure.
Recall any sort of charger or anything like that in that area of the home?
I don't.
Now, as far as who picked you up from the house that night?
My boyfriend.
And Mr. Morris came to the house on Fairview Road and picked you up at some point, about an hour, 45 minutes or so after you arrived there, is that correct?
Yes.
And recall what Mr. Morris was driving on that particular evening?
I remember that he actually was driving my car, which is a 2019 white Jeep Cherokee.
And what kind of car did Mr. Morris have at that time? If you recall?
At that time, he had a very old, I want to say like 2012 Ford Taurus. So that's why he took my car, because the Taurus wouldn't have been good in the snow.
And how was it that you came? Did he call you, text you? How did you know that he was there?
I believe that we texted, and that's how I was informed that he was out front.
Do you receive a text, something to the effect of here, and then you go outside?
Yes.
And when you went outside, if you recall, what was the weather like when you were coming out of the house?
When I walked outside, I remember, again, the snow was coming down a lot. I remember like sort of trying to watch my step because the stairs and the brick path were pretty snowy, and I didn't want to slip. So as far as weather, I remember it was actively snowing and I was trying not to slip. And that's pretty much what I can remember.
And do you recall where it was that your boyfriend, Mr. Morris, parked the car in relation to the house when he arrived?
I believe he parked in the driveway.
So you would have come down the steps, down the walkway to the driveway area, correct?
Yes.
And who drove from Fairview Road to back home that evening?
Tristan did.
Now, if you recall, when Mr. Morris, I'm assuming, backs out of the driveway, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
When he backs out of the driveway, where does the vehicle go in relation to the house?
I think he's definitely crossed.
We went up Fairview Road, so towards the flagpole in our yard.
And so towards the flagpole with the passenger side facing the house, is that right?
Yes.
And if you recall, as Mr. Morris is driving away from the home, what, if anything, with respect to the weather, did he have to employ within the car?
I remember the windshield wipers were on, and I remember he was driving very cautiously 10 and 2. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, the snow is coming down pretty hard.
And as you drove past the house, were you looking outside or looking at the house or the front lawn area of the home?
I was not. Once I got inside the car, my attention was on him, and we were having a conversation. So I hadn't been looking out the passenger window towards my house at really any point.
So your head was turned towards your boyfriend who's driving the car to the left of you as he's driving away from you?
Yes.
I have one moment now.
Yes.
I'm still not wondering where he's going with this. All he did was prove before that there was there was no fight between Karen Reed and John O'Keefe. I mean, once again, he brought out the fact that there was no tension between the two during this thing.
Nothing.
He's done this with every witness.
I know.
He's proven the defense's case.
I mean,
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay.
Good.
Mr. Yannetti?
Again, I'm just going to say this. He could have fronted the fact that Katie McLaughlin and her are friends. He could have said something. Now she's going to get ambushed at another witness that this idiot did not. He sets them up for failure.
didn't even touch it.
Doesn't touch it. He knows.
Didn't even touch it. Didn't even bring it up.
Before we put it back on, Bob,
Yeah.
have you ever seen, I mean, to me, especially with the cops, I've never seen this lack of preparation. Even I think 2 cops even testified that they had no trial prep at all. Is that like
Crazy.
unusual?
Yeah.
I've never, every time I've ever testified, it was always had a trial prep. They don't ask you, well, they don't tell you exactly what the questions they're going to ask. They're going to tell you, listen, this is where we're going to head with this. We're going to go here. You know, they don't coach you. I know someone had asked the question that Jay, you had put up before. They're not, you don't get coached in this. They just kind of, you know, this is what's going to happen. If this happens, then we're going to go with this route. If that happens, we're going to go this route.
Yeah, and they'll tell you, you know, if you don't know the answer to a question, don't guess. Just say I don't know or I don't recall. You know, they'll say make sure you read your report. You know, try to commit it to memory as much as possible. Yeah, I mean, you never see, especially Lally knew this thing that the whole country is going to be watching this thing. You know, it's just so shocking to me that we've seen so many witnesses, law enforcement and lay witnesses, get up there that just clearly have not been prepped.
Yeah, I mean,
You
New
know?
York City, we trained out of us you don't say I don't recall. I mean, they told us don't ever say that it's bad in court. If you don't know, just say I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, because eventually one of these witnesses are going to be forced to recall something because they're going to be confronted with evidence, and that's when this whole thing comes apart. That's why you don't say I don't recall.
For sure, because that opens you up to, can something refresh your recollection?
Yeah. Do you recall now?
Yeah.
You know?
Now do you recall after you just read that report? I mean, we've had witnesses still say, no, I don't remember. And it is, you know, because you're not supposed to just know it from reading the paper. It's supposed to actually refresh your recollection in your mind. Yep. So it's a very thin line, but you know, the judges will say, even after we've given them whatever we're going to give them to refresh the recollection, if they say, no, I still don't recall it. You know, I read what it's saying that I should remember, but I don't independently remember it. And the judge will let that stand typically, which is very frustrating.
Yep. Well, there you go.
Good afternoon.
Dive right into it.
Yeah, he's angry.
So, Ms. Albert, you were at your parents' home on January 29th by midnight or shortly thereafter, correct?
Correct.
And you were the last one to leave at 1:45, 2 o'clock, somewhere in that area?
Yes.
On January 29th of 2022, after you got up that day, did you receive a call, a text, any sort of communication from any investigator connected with this case?
I did not.
Trooper Proctor did not contact you on January 29th?
No.
He did not interview you on January 29th?
He did not.
What about January 30th?
No.
31st?
Nope.
How about the entire month of February? Did you hear from Trooper Proctor wherein he set up a meeting or an interview with you?
I did not.
Then what about the entire rest of 2022?
Objection,
Did
Your Honor.
Proctor interviewed you during that entire year?
All right, so the objection's overruled. You can answer that.
I was not interviewed, no.
No. And then in 2023, prior to May of 2023, were you contacted by Trooper Proctor or any investigator for an interview regarding what you just testified to here today?
I don't think so.
And you hadn't met Mr. Lally by May of 2023 either, correct?
I don't think so.
But in May of 2023, you actually were called to testify at another hearing where neither the Commonwealth or the defense in this case was present, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Lally and Ms. McLaughlin were not there, and certainly no members of the defense team were there, correct?
Correct.
And May of 2023 was well over a year after the events that you were called to testify about, correct?
Correct.
Right, so if these events happened on January 28th and 29th, 2022, the end of January of 2023 would have been a year, and now you're being asked for the first time to give testimony about what happened back in January of 2022 in May of 2023, correct?
Yes.
And then it was only after you testified before that other proceeding without the prosecution and the defense of this case there that Trooper Proctor finally interviewed you in August of 2023, correct?
That's correct.
And that was 4 months after you testified in that other hearing of May of 2023, correct? June, July, I'm sorry, 3 months, June, July, August, correct?
Correct.
And it was about a year and a half after January 29th of 2022, correct?
I believe so.
All right. Now, on direct examination, Mr. Lally had asked you about whether you knew Brian Higgins. Do you remember that line of questioning?
I do.
And I believe you testified that you knew of Higgins, correct?
Yes.
And you thought that you had met him a couple of times, correct?
Yes.
So Brian Higgins, you would classify as an acquaintance, correct?
To me?
Yes.
I would classify him as a friend of my father's, not really an acquaintance or friend of mine.
Okay. So he didn't rise to the level of an acquaintance, somebody who you met, but you didn't really know.
I'm not really sure how I would categorize my relationship with him. Again, it was just more of like, he was my father's friend. If I had seen him walking down the street, I would have said hello to him. I don't know anything about his personal life. I don't communicate with him regularly. So I mean, if that's what you would consider an acquaintance, then yes.
I guess I would ask, what do you consider an acquaintance? How would you define that?
Oh boy, here we go.
I would say an acquaintance is someone who you are friendly with and might see from time to time. I guess in my head, I'm just sort of thinking someone who's in closer in age with me. I usually think of it as more of like a friend type thing and not my father's friend to me. I guess that's just the way I think of it in my head.
Okay, so is your testimony before this jury that an acquaintance is really a friend?
Someone that you're friendly with, perhaps, could be.
Okay. Have you watched any of the testimony in this case prior to your taking the stand today?
I have not.
Has anybody told you anything about any of the testimony that has occurred prior to your taking the stand today?
No.
Are you sure? Who is Katie McLaughlin?
Katie McLaughlin is a girl who I'm the same age as. We went to high school together. We graduated the same year, and we have a couple mutual friends. We interact with some of the same people socially. I can't think of a time, possibly ever, where her and I ever hung out one-on-one or individually. So more of like a friend of a mutual friend.
Wow, she explained that a lot for someone who didn't see and has no idea what's
Has
coming
no
up.
idea it's coming.
She really explained that quite a lot.
She's a friend of a friend of
A name I know in
So,
high school.
Kate, you would not consider Katie McLaughlin to be a friend?
She's not a close personal friend of
I
mine.
asked you if she was a close personal friend.
Objection.
Just let her finish her answer.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your answer.
I would not consider her one of my, again, close friends.
All right. So let's get back to my question. Would you consider her to be a friend?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Okay, jurors, feel free to stand up and stretch.
Okay, she's calling it now. Now she's gonna give Yannetti all night to work on this.
Yeah, it's 4 o'clock, so they're gonna.
Yep, she's gonna call it.
That would have been a good time to say, she's an acquaintance.
Yeah, I would consider her to be an acquaintance.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That was the
They
correct
knew-
answer.
They
Yeah,
knew
would
that
have been
was
the correct
coming.
answer.
They
I went to
knew
school
for
with her. I mean, think about it, guys. How many people
Okay,
you went
Ms.
to school
Albert,
with
you
that you
know-
don't talk to anymore? But you knew them. That if you see them in the street, you say hi.
Right.
right.
Yeah. Like she's clearly friends with her, you know.
Courtney Proctor, correct?
I know of her, yes.
And you've been in her company several times, correct?
Yes.
You've met her children, correct?
Once, yes.
And you know she is Michael Proctor's sister, correct?
Yes.
When Michael Proctor ultimately interviewed you in August of 2023, did he ever ask you how well you knew his sister, Courtney Proctor? Did that subject ever come up?
Not that I remember.
And did you ever mention it to him that you had met his sister and met his sister's kids?
I did not.
Now, on January 28th of 2022, you went to the waterfall with your boyfriend, Tristan Morris, correct?
Yes.
And ultimately, he left and you stayed, correct?
Yes.
The reason that you stayed is you wanted to go back to the 34 Fairview, your old home, to be there by midnight when your brother was turning 23, correct?
Not necessarily. My plan was always to stay and just spend some time with my mom and my aunt. But Tristan left very early because he knew that he was going to have to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning shoveling or plowing. So my plan was never to go back with him. But it wasn't necessarily because it was my brother's birthday. It was just what my plan was for the night.
Certainly the fact that it was your brother's birthday didn't deter you from going back, right? In other words, the fact that it was your brother's birthday didn't cause you to hesitate to go back. You wanted to be there, right?
Well, my brother Brian wasn't at the waterfall.
No, I'm talking about, let's start over. Tristan left, right?
Yes.
You stayed at the waterfall.
Yes.
And you planned to go back to 34 Fairview, did you not?
At some point in time, that was spoken about, and I agreed to go back to 34 Fairview, yes.
Okay. And you went back there to see your family, correct?
Yes.
Including your brother Brian, whose birthday it was, correct?
Yes.
That was your parents' home, right?
Yes.
You grew up there.
Yes.
You were comfortable there.
Rapid fire
Yes.
questions.
There was
Be
plenty of room
careful.
at the house, correct?
In what sense?
Bunch of bedrooms.
Yes.
Not all of them were taken up, correct?
At that time, correct.
You certainly felt welcome there, correct?
Yes.
And there was no problem with you staying there overnight, correct?
Correct.
And when you made the decision to go there after the waterfall, you knew that there was a snowstorm that was starting, correct?
Yes.
And you've already testified that when you went back to 34 Fairview, you saw your cousin Colin Albert inside the home, correct?
Yes.
In fact, you walked in and he was one of the first people that you saw, correct?
Correct.
He's been over your house many times, correct?
Correct.
You're close with him as your first cousin, are you not?
I am.
And your brother Brian Jr. is close with him as well, correct?
Yes.
Colin Albert is close with your parents, correct?
Yes.
He's certainly welcome at your parents' home, correct?
Correct.
And it was certainly not shocking to see your first cousin, Colin Albert, at your home, correct?
Correct.
And you had a brief interaction with him, correct?
Yes.
That was sort of toward the foyer of the house?
Yes.
And then you continued deeper into your parents' home and you saw other people there, correct?
Yes.
Where did you go within the home after you had seen Colin?
I believe I entered through the foyer into the dining room area.
And when you were there, you saw your brother Brian, whose birthday it was, correct?
Yes.
He had two friends with him, Julie Nagel and Sarah Levinson, in that same area.
Yes.
You greeted them as well.
Yes.
And that's where your attention was focused, fair to say?
I would say that once I said hello to them, I didn't just sit with them three. I sort of was walking around. I wouldn't say my attention was solely focused on them three, but I did greet them, yes.
And where you were walking around within the kitchen dining room area?
Yes.
And once you greeted Colin and left him, it's fair to say that you then were not looking over your shoulder, monitoring what Colin was doing or where he was going, correct?
Correct.
And while you were in the kitchen dining room area, the door to the basement was kind of blocked from your view, was it not?
If I'm in the dining room area, there is a spot in there where I could see it, but I don't believe I could see the basement door, no.
Right. And from your vantage point, the door to the basement's kind of blocked from the area that you were in.
For the most part, yes.
And you weren't watching Colin to see where he went after you left him, correct?
Correct.
And you never saw him leave the house physically, correct?
Correct.
This may be a good time to pause. I don't know, are we going past 4?
All right, we'll pause then. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Albert, we'll bring you back tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, and ask you to stay here and just let the jurors file out first. And
All right,
jurors,
thank you.
those same three
Fine,
cautions. Please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, please disregard it and let us know. Tomorrow's a half day this evening.
All right, so Ms. Gianetti, why don't you tell me now what it is you hope to do tomorrow and basis for it?
Right, so my plan, Your Honor, it is based on the fact that Katie McLaughlin, when she testified, tried to minimize her relationship with Caitlin Talbot. The reason why that's relevant is that we have proof that she has changed her story after she learned that 34 Fairview was the Albert family home. She was on record with Trooper Proctor stating that, this is Katie McLaughlin, stating that what she heard my client say, she actually overheard. She heard my client addressing Jennifer McCabe on scene in a hysterical manner, saying, allegedly, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. And that evolved, in this case, to a multi-part conversation with many different people, including starting with Katie McLaughlin saying, was there any trauma? And my client supposedly responded, I hit him. And then a police officer jumps in and asked another question. My client supposedly said, I hit him. And there were 4 different times where my client was responding to others so that it wasn't really this burst of excitement and an excited utterance. She tried to cast it as statements that were made upon reflection, making them sound more ominous and more inculpatory than what they were, particularly because the person to whom my client was speaking, who was no friend of my client, reported that she said, did I hit him? Could I hit him? So we have a clear conflict in the testimony. We have a witness who has admitted that her statement has evolved, and she's admitted that her statement evolved after she learned the identity of the house that she was at, which happens to be the house that Caitlin Albert grew up in. When she was confronted with, who is Caitlin Albert, when Mr. Jackson asked Katie McLaughlin who Caitlin Albert was, there was a long pause, and then she was and then even the way she phrased it was, I think, telling. I went to school with somebody by that name. There was something to that effect. It just sounded ridiculous. It sounded like it was somebody that she was trying to remember. At that point, we had 4 photos that we marked for ID, H, I, J, and K, where we have them together. We have them being Facebook friends. We have a nature of the relationship that she tried to conceal in our view. Since that time, we've been deluged by other photos of the two of them together, including one, intimate photo of them, before them. I'm sorry, when I say before them, I mean Caitlin Albert, the 2 college roommates, and the only person who's not a college roommate in that photo is Katie McLaughlin. Katie McLaughlin also said that she never went on anything other than occasional day trips with Caitlin Albert. We now know that that's false. We have them together in a hot tub drinking in a photo that is from Maine, which is about a 4-hour drive away.
When is
That
that?
was, it was posted in 2016, which is another.
But when did it occur? Did it occur in 2016 or was it posted in 2016?
It was posted in 2016. I think the information, that's when it was a new photo that was uploaded. I mean,
Yeah.
That location was tagged on 2016, so we know it was after high school, which again contradicts Katie McLaughlin's testimony because she made it seem like this was just some girl that I knew in high school, and then we happened to be at the same places at various times, but I'm not close with her, despite the fact that I have my arm around her in most of the photos. The other aspect of this, Your Honor, is that she said that she had not, Katie McLaughlin testified she had not seen Caitlin Albert for, I think, 2 or 3 years prior to January of 2022. We have a baby shower photo that is from June of 2021. They are standing next to each other.
Do you have someone to authenticate that date?
Yes, they will.
Caitlin Albert will authenticate that date.
Why are you sure of that?
She's going to be shown a baby shower which occurred in 2021.
Okay.
That's when it's timestamped on social media. And Caitlin Albert, her face and her body are in that photo. Katie McLaughlin's face and body are in that photo.
How many other people are in that photo?
I think there are 6. I have the photo. Give back to Mr. McDermott. The one's for ID. Oh, thank you.
Or actually, if I can just see those, I thought these were different photos. If I could have those, then you don't need to count the people.
Stop bothering headache guy.
Yeah, he's very headachy.
Leave him alone.
I mean, these photos impeach the testimony of Katie McLaughlin multiple times. And we should be allowed to explore the bias of these witnesses. The bias of Katie McLaughlin, who gave incriminating testimony against my client, brand new testimony that only existed after she learned the identity of the homeowners in this case. This is classic bias and classic impeachment evidence. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to show photographic evidence of this relationship, much like Mr. Lally's shown photographic evidence of the 34th Fairview, what it looks like. It's intended to assist the jury. And in doing a 403 balancing test, Your Honor, the probative nature of
impeach her with anything he wants.
Any prejudice. She's able to explain these photos any way she wants when Mr. Lally does his redirect examination of her. But without being able to get into this, Your Honor, Katie McLaughlin's testimony, it's like she's wearing a suit of armor. We can't get through it. We have the tools and the evidence to get through it. We have the ability to expose her as somebody that's misrepresented something very important to this court. If we can't ask these questions and we can't get any of these photos, then we're not able to do it.
All right, Mr. Lally, what do you say?
Your Honor, just as far as the authenticity of whatever these is, as far as social media is concerned, there's a variety of ways to fabricate that. And I think it's interesting that Ms. Giannetti is really vague about where these photos came from or how he knows
I have an
these
idea where they
specifics
came
that
from.
he's so sure about when they occurred, where they occurred, what state people were in, what day it was, who is college roommates of who within these photographs, but has no specifics about, where these deluge of
He's
photographs
fumbling
came
with the
from.
files. He doesn't know
More
what the hell he's
importantly,
talking
Your Honor,
about.
what I would submit as far as Ms. McLaughlin is
Tell
concerned,
him,
is she was
Joe.
entirely consistent, and the disparagement as far as what her testimony has been, as far as her statement within the report to Trooper Proctor, her grand jury testimony in this case, and her testimony before this jury on the stand were identical, if not entirely consistent. And again, it's not just Ms. McLaughlin that is attributing this statement to the defendant. The jury has heard from 2 other firefighters, as well as anticipated other witnesses who will testify to these exact same statements that the defendant made outside of the home on that date. What counsel, I think, is referring to as far as the could I have hit him is something that the defendant said to Miss McCabe, which was overheard by Miss Roberts on a speakerphone on the way to Fairview Road. And then she modifies that statement when she's asked specifically about the bruising and how that could have been caused. And it's at that point where she repeats, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. So to then use prior statements to a completely separate witness that have nothing to do with Ms. McLaughlin to try to use that to claim impeachment or bias is ridiculous. And then as far as it applies to this specific witness, when it comes to impeachment and bias, what the case law is very clear about is if it goes to bias of the witness who is on the stand. And the witness in this case is Miss Albert, not Miss McLaughlin.
All right, thank you. This will save
That
us
was a
some
well
time
thought out
tomorrow.
argument.
Well, the only other thing I was going to add, Your Honor, is these arguments go to the weight, not the admissibility. But I pulled up
Yeah, it
my
was
notes.
frankly one of Lally's better arguments.
She has morphed her statement into, I asked if there had been any significant trauma. She said, I hit him. Then she repeated it. A woman said, you're hysterical, you need to calm down. She said, I hit him. Then a police officer said, what did you say? She repeated, I hit him. And, Ms. McCabe herself testified in the grand jury. That's not what happened. That she said at that moment, did I hit him? Could I have? She's on record saying it.
All right, thank you. I'll take a look at my notes and we'll figure this out first thing in the morning.
All right.
You're gonna figure it out first thing in the morning. Well, what do y'all think?
Like I said, that was the first time that Lolly's made an argument that I can actually get behind, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
He was prepared for that one, right? He knew that was coming. Because you saw him fumbling with the files. He had that thing memorized. He was ready to go on that. And, and once again, the Yannetti ran right up to the edge before he said perjury and then backed off the edges.
Right.
He's done that before. But
Yeah. I agree. And I think that the biggest point is that there were 2 other witnesses, independent witnesses, who did say that,
Numbers he
he
communicated
said
with.
that.
So those are
You know what I mean? So, like, specifically that I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. There were 2 other witnesses, which really it digs into that concept of bias that Katie McLaughlin just made this up independently. Be one thing if she was the only one to have said it or the only one to have heard it, rather. But apparently there were 2 other cops, or 2 other individuals who heard it, and I guess they were both firefighters.
yeah, EMT, I think, at firefighter.
Yeah, and the interesting thing to me has always been that the cops who we know were Mulaney and Saraf were both there. They didn't hear it. They did not hear the same thing. So,
Nor did they
I don't know.
document anything.
Yeah,
And that's the whole thing. The document wasn't done. Didn't happen.
Yep.
They have a very strong argument with that, and something that we always told the detectives. If you don't document it, it was never done. You can't bring it into court. They're just going to tear you apart. And we're watching this play out. And this is what, I said, if I had hair, I'd be pulling it out, because this is like, really, this is like the situation where this is why you train. This is why you talk about these things. This is why you have trial prep. And this is why you don't know which case is going to trial and which case isn't. So you prepare them all the same, and you have the same rules for everybody. I mean, it's as
Exactly.
simple as that.
And
Document the damn thing.
100%. And you know, as officers, that the lawyers are going to be relying on this shit. Well, like both sides, you know, the prosecutor and the defense are both going to be relying on police reports. You know, they're going to be parsed to hell. You know, they're going to read every word. They're going to pick them apart. You know, you guys know that going in. I mean, that's why you're trained on how to write the things. And yeah, your point's so well taken, because that just did not happen in this case with anybody, you know. And it's like, you have to wonder if it was somewhat lackadaisical because there were other cops involved. I mean, it's really the appearances of things more than the actuality of things taking place that's a problem for the state in this case. Because I don't know if there was any kind of conspiracy at all. Like none. Like the defense hasn't really shown me that that's taken place. What they have shown is that it was exceptionally sloppy police work, and that things that occurred should not have occurred, and things that should have occurred did not occur. You know, which all just kind of lead you to this place where the defense wants you to be, and this like, man, there's just so many weird things that have gone on with this. Did something nefarious go down? You know, and it's like, that's really all they need to do. Like, they're not the ones with the burden beyond a reasonable doubt. You know, I mean, to get to that place where the jury's just like, Jesus, I don't know. Like, but I don't feel comfortable convicting her. You know, I mean, ultimately, does that do a ton for Karen Reed in terms of her reputation if she's, you know, found not guilty out on the street? I mean, no. Like, but like, if you were to say, hey, Karen Reed, would you rather have a reputation of being a murderer by half the public, or would you rather spend the rest of your life in prison? She's going to take the other, you know, she goes, yeah, I'll deal with the other thing. You know, I'll deal with people thinking I'm a murderer.
She can move it to Vermont with Chloe.
Exactly. Her and Chloe can just hang out and frolic in the fields, flipping their hair and just rolling around, getting hay fever. It'll be great. So, well, another fascinating day. So we're gonna lead off with Caitlin Albert still under cross tomorrow. Joe,
what do you got coming up this? Do you have anything coming up this?
What do you got? What's popping on Sarge's channel?
Tomorrow night, I have Kristen Fedden, who was at the time she was the ADA for Montgomery County in Pennsylvania that got the conviction on Bill Cosby. So she's going to be on, because we're going to be talking about the Me Too movement with Weinstein and how that's headed. So there's going to be a lot of tie-ins with that. And then
Fascinating subject.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it. I met Kristen when we had the Hamptons Who Done It, and we kind of hit it off. She's a really, really nice lady. And I met her husband and everything.
That looked like a lot of fun.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
You and Mac were up there, right? Like a whole crew was up there.
Yep. And I got a couple other surprise guests coming up this month. At the end of the month, we're gonna have a big Long Island serial killer thing. You won't want to miss it. When I had first gotten on and I went off the screen and Mandy was going crazy because nobody was here. I had just gotten the phone call that I've been waiting for like 2 weeks. So I saw it and I was like, I gotta take this. So he said, yeah. So I'll announce that probably next week.
I mean, considering I kept you in limbo for 20 minutes, man, I think
20. It was like 30 something. Finally, I said, you know what? I text Bob. I'm like, you know what? I give up. I went right to Jay. I'm like, Jay, I'm in the room. You got to get me out of the limbo over here.
And Joe, tell the folks who don't know about roll call, because you got that too. Tell them about that.
We're going to be doing roll call this Friday, which is roll call is like when the cops in the morning, or they come in, they get their assignments, you know, the old Hill Street Blues, be careful out there kind of stuff. So we go through some of the cases, but we're going to be doing Karen Reed wrap up for the week. I got my buddy Mike Alcazar joins me, and we do this. We've been doing a couple of shows a week, but we're only getting to one this week because everybody's busy with the holiday. We had, with Mother's Day, and things got a little crazy. And hey, Jersey. And yeah, it's becoming a little, and the nice thing about it is it ends right before you guys do your stuff. So it's actually kind of cool in that respect that we can kind of complimentary kind of things going on there.
Yeah, and when we finally start the morning drop, it'll roll in from the morning drop right into whatever days you're doing roll call. Then, like if Jay and I are streaming something, then right into that. So it'll be, because we'll be doing that daily, but it's like quick hitters. You know what I'm saying? So It'll be like a boom, boom. It's kind of like that dream I had of having like a network where we just had one show after another on all of our channels for all day viewing pleasure. So
One day.
yeah,
One
it's
day.
great. It's great.
But if you're not, I know a lot of people here are, but if you're not already, please subscribe to Sarge's channel. It's really good. He has great interviews, like he was just talking about, and the roll call is awesome. Just him and Mike kind of just shooting the shit and giving you the information you want to hear. And I mean, it's really good. I'm in there usually checking it out, and they do a great job. So please subscribe to Sarge. He is on his way to 10K. We want him and the Publicly Buzzed boys. We got to get them to 10K, folks. So.
Yeah, he broke 10-6 while we were on here. So let's go. Let's drive it home. 10K is such a great milestone.
Yeah, it's a big one.
We need to get that to happen ASAP. Joe, we love you, man. Thank you so much
Joe.
for hanging with us. You know,
Anytime,
obviously, you always have just a standing invite to come join us.
Yeah, we'll do
next
this
time
again.
whenever you want to jump in for
Sure.
more read, just let us know.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, brother. Be good.
All right,
right,
take
guys.
care, Joe.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
All right, y'all. Another great day of trial madness. A lot of fun. Was pretty smooth for the most part till it
Yeah,
wasn't.
thanks for sticking with us with the snap, crackle, and pop moments. But we
yeah.
both sessions here combined, we've had over 2,000, which has just been
It's been
amazing. So thank you all guys for like sticking with us. We had a little tech issues, but you stuck with us, and we appreciate
Yeah, I mean, like if you know me, we're always gonna have tech issues. That'll never not be a thing. Like I've come to just realize that will always be a thing with me. The problem is, as soon as I learn the existing tech, there's new tech, which I'll always be behind. Always be behind. In my defense, I have no defense. So we love you guys, mods. Thank you guys so much for hanging with us all day, doing all the work that you do, and you guys out there in the chat, and those of you lurking. We love all of you. Thank you so much for hanging with us all day. Tomorrow we're on Jay's channel, so make sure. And I'm trying to work another special guest. I'm going to let Jay know. I'm trying to. I don't want to name names yet, but I'll let Jay know in text. See if this person will join us tomorrow for our half day. And remember, tomorrow's a half day, so it'll be the shorty, but it's bound to be great. Yeah, I'm dying to know. Are they going to call Proctor? I mean, it's starting to seem like they're not.
I mean, if they're not, the defense sure is. So he's going to be there one way or the other, I think. I mean,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I love this trial. And we love you guys, because without you, we'd just be two old bastards talking about new, old, all the cases, just all the cases. We love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Hard to